Chapter 623. Zhang Xiu looked down from the top of the rock. The mountain range below was filled with spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. Fortunately, the flames of the battle didn't burn this place, so it was basically intact. Not long after, the medical apprentice came out. "You're in luck. Master is willing to see you. Come with me." Zhang Xiu was no stranger to the clinic. He used to come here often. Supreme Sparrow was wearing a long robe. He pulled up his sleeves and opened the lid of the medicine furnace. There was the sound of boiling water inside. He took a look at the situation inside and then said to the disciple beside him, "It's done." Only after he was done did he forget to come over and say, "Your natal relic has been destroyed. There's nothing I can do. You can only rely on yourself to slowly recuperate and hope for a miracle." His medical skills were not bad, but there was still a gap between him and the top three. Even the top three could not do anything, let alone him. "Take a seat." He sat down at the consultation table and motioned for Zhang Xiu to sit down as well. "I'll prescribe you some medicinal pills to strengthen your foundation. They can alleviate your physical symptoms. Only after your body has recovered can you repair your natal divine artifact." Zhang Xiu said, "Thank you." Of course, he wasn't here to repair his natal divine artifact. It was just an excuse. He was here to find something. After writing down the pill formula, the Supreme Sparrow stood up. However, a strange light flashed through her eyes as the corner of her mouth curled up into a smile. "I've heard of something," Zhang Xiu said. What is it?" "I heard that Elder Q-Sword wants to do a blood test for you." Zhang Xiu retracted his gaze and looked at the back of the Supreme Sparrow in astonishment. He felt strange in his heart. This immortal doctor was too powerful to know such a secret. Wasn't this indirectly telling him that he was also one of the 4 murderers? "That's right. They always think that I'm Sect Master Zhang." The Supreme Sparrow turned around. He was tall and had a refined temperament. "Then, are you Zhang Luoxia?" The two of them were old friends. In the past, Zhang Xiu had often come to him when he was injured. "Haha, of course not." The Supreme Sparrow returned and handed the medicine to the medical apprentice. "Then why do I feel that you are a little afraid of the blood test? If you are not Zhang Luoxia, then you can rest assured." Zhang Xiu smiled and waited for the apprentice to finish preparing the medicine. Meanwhile, Supreme Sparrow seemed to be pulling out all kinds of drawers and arranging all kinds of medicine. She floated around the huge palace like a ghost. The hidden herbs here were regarded by countless royal families in the Qing province as the best place for immortals. Many people would give up everything they had just to obtain a single herb here. Moon-charming white lotus. Zhang Xiu saw the moon-charming white lotus placed in a drawer and constantly emitting cold white smoke. Anyone who entered the Qianqing school's ancestral hall would be discovered by the formation inside. Even the most powerful immortal king would be discovered. However, as the former sect master, he knew that the Qianqing school had a secret recipe called Charming Concealment Powder. It could conceal all powers and evade the formation's detection. The moon-charming white lotus was the main ingredient. When the disciplinary elder came back and insisted on a blood test, his identity would definitely be exposed. Right now, the best way was to enter the ancestral hall and replace the blood he had left behind. "Master, the medicine is ready," Supreme Sparrow ordered without turning his head. "Give it to him." "Many thanks, senior brother." After Zhang Xiu left, Supreme Sparrow's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. He said, "Increase the security tonight. There might be uninvited guests." "Yes, Master." The medical apprentice said, "Master, is there really no other way for Zhang Xiu? It's a pity. If he had amazing talent and could be repaired, he would definitely be able to leave his name on the clear spirit list." Supreme Sparrow said, "What do you think of his spirit?" The medical apprentice thought for a bit and said, "You don't say, his spirit is quite strong. He's not like a crippled disciple. In the past, when he met someone who was in a much better situation than him, he couldn't recover." Supreme Sparrow said, "Not bad, his spirit is very strong." "This is a true expert." Many geniuses were indeed talented. Their cultivation speed was very fast, and their achievements were also very high. They roamed the continent and became famous. However, after encountering a setback, they quickly fell silent. Only true experts could be defeated, but they would not be defeated easily. No matter how serious the setback was, they would still persevere. The next day, Supreme Sparrow came to the medical hall as usual. His disciple was even earlier than him. "Good morning, Master." "Good morning, Master." Supreme Sparrow's robes fluttered in the wind. His hands were behind his back as he walked into his hall. When he saw his disciple, he asked, "Were there any uninvited guests last night?" "Everything was fine last night. There was nothing out of the ordinary." Supreme Sparrow said, "That's strange." It was also on this day that Qianqing School received an invitation. In the past, the Qianqing School had received many of these invitations. It was called the Clear Spirit Invitation. Since the sect master wasn't here, Shan Kuan was in charge of all the miscellaneous matters. Naturally, he received the invitation. This was an invitation to the Qianqing School's outstanding disciples to compete for the Clear Spirit list and become famous. Every time the Clear Spirit invitation was sent out, all the young geniuses in the world would be excited. The immortal martial continent was a hunting ground for fame and fortune. Many sects could suddenly become famous because of an outstanding new generation disciple. Back in the day, Zhang Luoxia was also one of the top names on the Clear Spirit list. He descended from the heavens to cleanse the 9 mysteries. His achievements were unparalleled. Not long ago, even a 3-year-old child would know this poem. It was very popular for a period of time. "Young master, have you heard? After Zhang Xiu was fine, several maids came back from Jialan to visit relatives. Of course, Shangguan Zhao Rong also came back." "I've heard. Do you want me to go?" Shangguan Zhao Rong shook her head and said, "No. It's just that young master said that the sect is currently in troubled times. Staying in the sect will only cause endless trouble. Since that's the case, why not go out for a walk?" The Tai Hua sect was like a tiger and a wolf. The Ji Dao sect was stubbornly moving their sect. No matter which one of these things blew up, it would be another troublesome matter. For the Tai Hua sect, Jiang Shituo's injuries were extremely serious. He was probably crippled. Moreover, the Ji Dao sect had the Tai Hua sect's nemesis. They probably wouldn't dare to cause trouble, but it was possible that they would lose their minds in anger. As for the matter of moving sects, it was inevitable that a huge conflict would erupt. "It's good to go out," Zhang Xiu said, "but we're not going to Clear Spirit Mountain. We're going to Tsong State, to a place called Heavenly Emperor Mountain." Pang pang. The teacup in Shangguan Zhao Rong's hand accidentally fell to the ground. The freshly brewed spiritual tea spilled all over the floor. Zhang Xiu looked at her, his slender fingers trembling slightly as he asked, "Are you all right?" The servant girls outside also walked in after hearing this. I'm fine." Xiaoye said, "Sister Zhao Rong, let me do it. Be careful not to prick your hand." Shangguan Zhao Rong said, "Young master, it's all my fault for being careless." Zhang Xiu smiled faintly, then he picked up the scroll filled with Heaven's Ask Talisman. He was getting more and more interested in the Heaven's Ask Talisman. He discovered that the incantations of the Immortal Clan actually had some similarities with the divine runes. Vaguely, they could be converted through the Heaven's Ask Talisman. If Zhang Xiu could do this, then all the immortal techniques that he had cultivated before could be converted into god techniques using the Heaven's Ask Talisman. The broken pieces of porcelain on the floor were quickly cleaned up and dried. Coming out of Zhang Xiu's room, Xiaoye said, "Sister Zhao Rong, are you all right? Are you feeling unwell? Your complexion doesn't look too good." Shangguan Zhao Rong reached out to touch her face and found that it was a bit cold. She didn't know if it was her face or her hands that were cold, but she found that her slender jade-like hands were still trembling. "I'm fine." Xiaoye was very worried. "Sister Zhao Rong, go back to your room and rest for a bit. Let me and Xinya prepare the young master's dinner." "I'm really fine." She put down her hands and hid them in her sleeves. Sister Zhao Rong, the young master is really good to you. He didn't even scold you when you broke a cup." The little girl's words had a double meaning. Hearing this, Shangguan Zhao Rong's face became a bit hot. Of course, she could hear the little girl's hidden meaning. "What nonsense are you saying? The young master's temperament has always been like this. He isn't someone who would argue over small matters." He, Sister Zhao Rong, I found that you haven't returned to your room to sleep for several nights." Zhao Rong's thin face flushed red. "Little girl, are you looking for a beating?" Chapter 624. The hall was peaceful and quiet. White clouds floated between the mountains. Zhang Xiu held the scroll and watched quietly. He was a very sensitive person. Shangguan Zhao Rong's loss of composure just now was enough to make him feel that something was wrong. However, Zhang Xiu could not figure out why Shangguan Zhao Rong would lose her composure when she heard about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State. Logically speaking, she should not have gone there and should not have had any interaction with it. As the sun set, the sky was bright red. He slowly put down the scroll. The tea was still warm, and taking a sip allowed his thoughts to become clearer. In his mind, he couldn't get rid of the image of Shangguan Zhao Rong's pale face and trembling fingers. This was definitely not an accident. The cause of this accident was related to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State. The only person who could have interacted with the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was not Zhao Rong, but that goddess. Her familiarity with the stone snake, her familiarity with the Heavenly Questioning Talisman, and her loss of composure when she heard about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State all pointed to Shangguan Zhao Rong being a goddess. Zhang Xiu was very confused. The distant mountains were vast, and the setting sun was infinitely beautiful. After he stood up, his shadow was elongated, but it added a bit of bleakness. "You're not? But you still look like Zhao Rong. Are you or not?" Zhang Xiu's face was still indifferent, but his eyes revealed a bit of loneliness. He did not want to think about Zhao Rong anymore. Before the accident, why did he leave the Qianqing school and go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State? From his inference, it seemed that nothing had happened at that time. He did not remember any friends inviting him, or any opponents appearing there. It was more likely the Heavenly Mirror. Of course, Zhang Xiu wanted to become a celestial emperor. He thought about it. The only thing he could think of was that the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State had the things needed to cultivate the Heavenly Mirror. Maybe it was true, or maybe it was a trap. Then, an accident happened at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State. And it should be related to the Ji Dao sect, Jiang Shituo, his two old friends, and the lost Tang Tian. "Young master, it's time to eat." Shangguan Zhao Rong brought dinner over. "Drink the snake blood first." In the past, Zhang Xiu would be poisoned if he drank snake blood. Now, he was drinking snake blood to repair his natal divine artifact. He drank it every day, every meal, until he almost vomited. "I don't think there's a need." Zhao Rong Shangguan said, "Young master, you should drink it. This is good stuff." In the past, many Protoss could only dream of having a cup. Its purity is very close to God Buzhou's blood. Just by opening the lid, there was a nauseating smell of blood. Even Zhang Xiu couldn't stand it. "There's not much left." Zhang Xiu nodded slightly and said, "Then let's finish it. You didn't waste your time catching snakes all over the mountain." It had to be known that those stone snakes only lived in Buzhou country and were very intelligent. Even the most experienced snake hunters might not be able to catch one in 10 years. Not to mention, the stone snakes had already branched off. To be able to see the ancient bloodline and complete it and refine the soul, Zhang Xiu found it more and more inconceivable. Even he, the sect master of Qianqing school, felt that this method was inconceivable. But Zhao Rong did it so casually and easily. After drinking, Zhang Xiu carried Zhao Rong into the room. The snake blood was too hot. "Little you, that girl is laughing at Zhao Rong." Zhao Rong Shangguan complained. She felt that she was wronged. Wasn't this for young master's good? The great space Dao fetus and the ancient god Buzhou's blood. The evening wind blew through the mountains, and the leaves rustled in the wind. The sound of insects could also be heard. It was quiet and peaceful. Only the sound of breathing in the house was slightly out of breath, and there was also a sound of soft moaning mixed together. At some unknown time, the wind became stronger and blew against the window. The wind became stronger and stronger. The window that was as white as jade seemed to be unable to bear the pressure. It was like a lost sheep in despair. It was constantly being hit, and the sound of banging rang out. It really made one worry that the window would be broken. The mountain wind blew even more wildly. It seemed to have reached the most urgent moment. The desperate and resounding cries suddenly calmed down. Her long black hair scattered on the pure white pillow. Her forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Her face was red and her eyelashes trembled like the wings of a butterfly. She felt like she was going to die. She struggled to open her eyes. Although she was looking at the ceiling, her eyes were unfocused. A drop of sweat slid down her pure white face, down her chin, and into her neck. She felt herself twitch a few times. She couldn't even move her fingers. "Young master, when do you plan to go to Tsong State?" Zhang Xiu said, "Tomorrow." He had a reason to leave as soon as possible. However, Zhang Xiu could not say this reason. However, whether Zhao Rong already knew, Zhang Xiu did not know. To be honest, if Zhao Rong asked him if he was Zhang Luoxia, he would not admit it even if he was beaten to death. It was like when she asked Zhao Rong whether she was Zhao Rong or a goddess. Of course, it could be different. She could be Zhao Rong. What kind of place is the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Zhao Rong said. Zhao Rong also doesn't know. You should know when you go there. Why must you go there? To find something. Zhang Xiu wanted to find his lost memories. He wanted to know what had happened to him in the past. He could not lose his position as the sect master like this. If a person lost their memories and returned to the place they had been to, would it help them recover their memories? Zhao Rong had read a lot of medical books. Maybe the memory loss could be caused by an injury, or it could be because you don't want to remember. You want to forget, it depends on which one it is. Zhang Xiu said, "It should be an injury." Zhao Rong looked at Zhang Xiu's back as he stood up and left. Her eyes that had become bright again became complicated. Why do I have to remember? Wouldn't it be better if I don't remember? Zhang Xiu speculated that his memory loss should be caused by an injury. He was never a person who would escape. He did not believe that he wanted to forget. She sat up straight and raised her voice to ask, "Young master, will you bring Zhao Rong?" Zhang Xiu said, "Do you want to go?" "Yes, young master should bring Zhao Rong." Zhang Xiu nodded in agreement. "All right, I can't lack a beauty. Let's go together. Along the way, I can't do without your care." It had been more than a month since the end of the year, and they had lived here for a period of time. They had become familiar with the other people on Shenxiu Peak, especially with Xiao Yu's lively personality. Basically, the neighbors were already her good friends. Zhang Xiu brought Zhao Rong Shangguan on a long trip. Li Chong and the two servant girls could return to Jialan, or they could stay in the sect and let them do as they pleased. Li Chong chose to hold back. There were countless experts in Tianqing School. He could go around to learn and spar with others. As for the two servant girls, they were greedy for the prosperity and noise of Jialan and prepared to go back. Zhao Rong Shangguan had also prepared some financial resources for them so that they could look better when they returned. Just as they were about to leave, they saw a man walking over. When they saw this person, they all greeted, "Greetings, Elder." Zhang Xiu was very surprised. "Supreme Sparrow Elder. What kind of wind blew you here?" Supreme Sparrow sized up Zhang Xiu and said, "Firstly, I want to see your condition, and secondly, I have something to ask you." Zhang Xiu asked, "What is it?" Supreme Sparrow said, "There is a precious medicinal ingredient missing from the medical hall." "Could it be that Elder thinks that I took it?" Supreme Sparrow said, "That medicinal ingredient is very precious and priceless. In the past few days, I have asked all the disciples who have come to the medical hall, and you are no exception. Then I wonder how Elder can cooperate with me?" Supreme Sparrow said, just let me walk around your house for a while. Then, Elder, please. Supreme Sparrow's clothes fluttered as he entered Zhang Xiu's residence. The medicine was very special. He took out a bottle, and after opening it, a blue sand-like gas escaped. If it was something that would leave behind a special spirit energy within a radius of 1 li, it would cause the blue sand to turn white. But unfortunately, there were no changes. Where are you going? Zhang Xiu said, going out to relax. Did you find Elder? Supreme Sparrow did not answer the question, and said, at that time, Tang Tian and Zhang Shitua both mentioned that the disappearance of the previous sect leader was related to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in Song State. Don't tell me you are going to Song State. Zhang Xiu said, Song State is too far, I am just going out to relax. I don't have a specific location, so it won't be long. Of course, I also want to try my luck and find the other 3 divine doctors. Supreme Sparrow said, what a coincidence, I also want to go out to relax. How about we go together? Chapter 625. Zhang Xiu was stunned. What kind of show was this? Supreme Sparrow's words hinted that he was Zhang Luoxia, and now he wanted to travel with him. Was he trying to spy on him or find evidence? What? Supreme Sparrow said, is it inconvenient or not? Zhang Xiu said, it is this disciple's honor that Elder is willing to travel with us. Then let's go together. Shangguan Zhao Rong lowered her head slightly as a strange look flashed across her face. Zhang Xiu thought that Supreme Sparrow wanted to stop him from going to Tsong State's Heavenly Mountain. Good. Supreme Sparrow said with a smile, then you go first to the sect gate. I will go back to the mountain to pack up and have a disciple go get a flying boat. Okay. Zhang Xiu didn't need to go and get the flying boat. The level of the Elder's flying boat was definitely a luxurious level. He took the lead and brought Shangguan Zhao Rong down to the sect's entrance, accompanied by the 2 girls, who returned to Jialan. Young master, if Supreme Elder follows us, are we still going to Tsong State? Zhang Xiu also frowned slightly. Let's go in the direction of Tsong State. We'll think of something on the way. And not long after, a large flying boat flew out from inside the sect. There was a large and magnificent palace in front of the door. The cruise ships on Earth paled in comparison to this one. It was thousands of meters long and hundreds of meters wide. It pierced through the clouds like a prehistoric beast. Zhang Xiu, come on up. Supreme Sparrow stood on the deck of the flying boat. His clothes fluttered in the wind, looking very carefree. In the entire Qianqing school, the one who did not fight for anything was this medical elder. There was more than one person on the flying boat. Supreme Sparrow brought a large group of disciples. In the Qianqing school, he was the one with the most direct and nominal disciples. There were more than 100 men and women, and they were all medical cultivators. Medical cultivators were not the most talented, but their status was very high. Especially those who majored in alchemy, their status was 100 times higher. The flying boat was filled with the Qianqing school's flags that fluttered in the wind. It was very impressive. There were also many disciples and servants accompanying them. Zhang Xiu was also quite helpless. They had already told Supreme Sparrow that they were going out to relax and have no goal. Yet they still came out in such a grand fashion. Even the most prodigal emperor would not be so excessive. Zhang Xiu, we plan to go that way. Zhang Xiu said, let's go south. Supreme Sparrow laughed. South. Isn't this a coincidence? It is in the direction of Tsong State. Good, let's go to Tsong State. Ah no, it's south. Zhang Xiu's marble-like face revealed an unnatural expression. Let's go. The elder gave the order. The flying boat of the Qianqing of was Shangguan Zhao Rong. Thank you for making us tea. Supreme Sparrow pointed to an empty spot on the deck. This so-called deck was almost as spacious as the Qianqing school's practice field. Yes. Shangguan Zhao Rong made a sound of agreement and retreated. Today's weather is really good. The wind on the flying boat was quite strong, causing his clothes to flutter. Supreme Sparrow stretched his back lazily. I've been trying to improve my medical skills all these years, so I've neglected my cultivation. Now that the sky is clear and the air is clear, I should loosen my bones." As he spoke, he pulled out a sword that was hanging on a pillar and flew into the arena. Zhang Xiu watched quietly. This elder's strength was famous in the Qianqing school. He was different from the other immortal kings. He was able to become an immortal king mainly because of alchemy. He had spent thousands of years refining a golden pill to become an immortal king. Back then, he had been opposed by many people in the Qianqing school because he had embezzled public property. As the leader of the Immortal Medicine Peak, he was in charge of all of the Qianqing school's medicinal herbs. They were part of the Qianqing school's biggest assets, not his personal property, but the public property. He had taken the position to refine the golden pill, so of course he would be opposed by many people, causing many people to be dissatisfied. Under his control, the sword blossomed with golden light. He pointed at the void, and the flying sword advanced in the void. Suddenly, it disappeared without a trace. In the next moment, a burst of light burst out from his body. The flying sword's head shot out from the light with a whoosh. "Good." The disciples cheered at the side. Seeing this sword art, Zhang Xiu frowned slightly. Supreme Sparrow said to him, "How is it?" "Very powerful." Supreme Sparrow said, "This is not a spell, nor is it a sword art. It is a combination of the two, the most unique immortal martial sword art of the immortal martial continent." What a familiar phrase. I have a name for this sword art. It is called the Evading Sword. It is a very tacky name, but it doesn't matter. There is only one move, and I learned it by accident in an ancient site. I have taught it to many people, and I have taught it to all sword cultivators who want to learn it. This was not a sword art of the Qianqing school, so of course it could be taught casually. But not many people have learned it. Zhang Xiu's face was expressionless. "Do you want to learn it?" Zhang Xiu shook his head and said, "I am a saber cultivator, and am not very interested in learning the sword. Although this evading sword is very strange, I still want to focus on it." Supreme Sparrow said, "The person who learned it took an extremely long time, 13 years. The current sect leader, Ji Daozong, learned it for 3 years, and the person who learned it the fastest, Zhang Xiu, didn't need to say anything to know. He had heard of this before, and the person who learned it the fastest was naturally him. However, their disciples seemed to have never heard of this story, and all of them were very curious. It was even their first time seeing their master use this sword art. "How long did the fastest person take?" "That's right, master, quickly tell us." Supreme Sparrow said, "The person who learned it the fastest is naturally Zhang Luoxia, who was known as the #1 genius of the immortal martial continent for the past 3,000 years. Zhang Xiu's fame rose all the way to the top. Many people felt that the world had overestimated Zhang Xiu, but Zhang Xiu had an indescribable charm, and the world would always praise him, but it was not without reason. "I'm guessing it's the former sect leader. How long did sect leader Zhang learn it? Could it be a year?" Supreme Sparrow shook his head. "You said too much. Could it be half a year?" "That's too exaggerated. Sect leader Ji learned it for 7 years. Supreme Sparrow shook his head and said, "You guys definitely won't be able to guess it. He only learned it for a day, or more accurately, it was a night. I taught him at night, and he learned it in the morning." "What?" The disciples present all exclaimed in shock, and then sighed in amazement. Zhang Luoxia was indeed worthy of being known as the #1 genius of the immortal martial continent for the past 3,000 years. Supreme Sparrow seemed to have recalled the events of the past, and was very excited. No matter how far he shot the flying swords, they would appear beside him in the next instant. As his movements increased in speed, the entire sky was filled with flying swords, and there were even more flying swords appearing around him, forming a spherical sword net. "Don't you want to try it?" Using this sword art didn't require any energy at all. Even if his natal divine weapon was shattered, he would still be able to support it. That's right, Zhang Xiu should give it a try. That day in the successor battle, Zhang Xiu had also displayed incomparable talent. Everyone was looking forward to seeing what level his talent had reached. However, Zhang Xiu was extremely cautious in his heart. There was a story behind this sword art. Back then, when Zhang Xiu was still a successor disciple, and had just entered the successor disciple stage, he was facing a powerful senior disciple. At that time, nobody thought highly of him, and his cultivation base wasn't high enough to win. However, that senior disciple's sword art had a flaw, and this flaw required the flash strike sword to pass through the sword shield. When he thought of Supreme Sparrow's evading sword, Zhang Xiu went to find Supreme Sparrow in the middle of the night, begging him to teach him. Of course, Supreme Sparrow didn't refuse, but said that he wouldn't be able to learn it in one night. However, Zhang Xiu was in the courtyard, and when dawn broke, he displayed the evading sword during the battle with senior disciple stage. At that time, the entire Tianqing school was shocked, and no one didn't gasp in admiration. Zhang Xiu also interacted with Supreme Sparrow because of this. Now that he mentioned this sword art again, of course, it wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. There was a hint in it. I'd better not. I'm a saber user, and I'm not familiar with swords. Zhang Xiu insisted on refusing. He didn't need to try. He already knew how to use it, and he could use it casually. Of course, he could show off his might, but wouldn't that make Supreme Sparrow even more certain that he was Zhang Luoxia? This sword art can break through all sword and shield techniques in the world. It's also considered a strange sword art. It's a pity not to learn it. Zhang Xiu, you insist on not learning it. Could it be that you have some inner demons? Although Zhang Xiu was an arrogant person who liked to be called a genius, he was also a patient person. Now was definitely not the time for him, Zhang Luoxia, to show his face. Unless he went back to the time when he was subverted and found the person who harmed him, he would be courting death if he exposed himself early. Chapter 626. Attracted by the speed of Wushang Sparrow's sword, many disciples gathered. Shangguan Zhaorong came over with a cup of spirit tea and said softly, "Please make way." Seeing her, Wushang Sparrow took advantage of the situation and said, "Miss Zhaorong, do you want to learn?" A dignified elder took the initiative to teach a disciple a sword art, but was rejected. It was a bit embarrassing. He wanted to save some face. But who would have thought that Shangguan Zhaorong, who was placed on the table, stood up straight and shook her head in a ladylike manner and said, "No, I will serve young master wholeheartedly." Well, the master and servant were acting like this. Wushang Sparrow was embarrassed. "Miss Zhaorong, are you afraid that it is too difficult to learn?" "No, learning this sword art has nothing to do with cultivation. As long as you have enough comprehension and are willing to spend some time, you will definitely be able to learn it." Zhang Xiu thought that if the person in front of him was Zhaorong, it would be fine. But if it was a goddess, he didn't even dare to imagine how strong she was at her peak. This sword art was no different from a child's play in her eyes. Why would she want to learn it? "I still don't want to, it takes up too much time." Wushang Sparrow's mouth twitched unnaturally. Seeing Zhang Xiu raise his teacup and drink, Wushang Sparrow embarrassedly stopped his sword art and walked over. He sat down opposite of Zhang Xiu. Shangguan Zhaorong had already passed the cup to him. "Are you guys usually so bored?" Zhang Xiu had already taken out the book on Heaven's Inquisition Talisman. He spent almost all of his time on it. Heaven's Inquisition Talisman was an extremely ancient talisman that existed on God Buzhou's body. Its origin was even earlier than God Buzhou. Even Zhang Xiu's memory had a lot of mistakes. Fortunately, Shangguan Zhaorong corrected him. But memorizing was only the first step. Comprehending the mysteries of each talisman was the key. Zhang Xiu's current comprehension was very limited. Talismans were very difficult to explain. They were very similar to laws. Most of them couldn't be explained and could only be comprehended by oneself. "What are you looking at?" Zhang Xiu didn't hide it. Heaven's Inquisition Talisman was circulated in Western Zhou, and there were many similar words circulating in Immortal Martial Continent. There was no need to hide it. "What is this?" Zhang Xiu explained, "This is a type of talisman I discovered in the Western Zhou country. It should be very ancient and is different from the ones circulating in the Immortal Martial Continent. That's why I'm interested in it." Supreme Sparrow was an immortal doctor. He wasn't interested in talismans and formations. He only took a glance at the dense array of talismans. Anyone who didn't know much about talismans would feel a headache coming on. Seeing the helplessness on his face, Jiang Xiu secretly laughed. It would be best if they didn't get along and went their separate ways. That way, he would be able to smoothly head to Tsong province. In a flash, half a month had passed. From time to time, Supreme Sparrow would come over to communicate with Jiang Xiu. However, Jiang Xiu was able to deal with it. As for Jiang Xiu and Shangguan Zhaorong, other than the matters at night, they were also very bored during the day. Jiang Xiu would read books and occasionally discuss with Shangguan Zhaorong about talismans. Other than that, there was nothing else to do. It was extremely boring. After another 10 days, Supreme Sparrow couldn't take it anymore. He realized that if he followed Jiang Xiu around, he wouldn't be exposed. Finally, before they reached Tsong province, he suggested that they part ways. Seeing Jiang Xiu leave, Supreme Sparrow fell into deep thought. A disciple beside him said, the disciplinary elder asked why he didn't directly use his blood to verify it. Supreme Sparrow said, Jiang Luoxia is arrogant and conceited. This is all on the surface. In reality, he is very meticulous and intelligent. If my judgment is wrong, then Jiang Luoxia's blood in the ancestral hall would have already been swapped by him. I was too careless that day. If I discovered that the enchanted moon white lotus had been stolen, I would have charged straight for him. Who knows, I might have been able to catch him red-handed. Now, it's too late to say anything. He indeed had a reason to regret. When Jiang Xiu came to find him that day, he already felt that something was wrong. Jiang Xiu might have had designs on him, but his reaction was too slow. Teacher, his cultivation isn't there. How could he have stolen the enchanted moon white lotus from the immortal medical peak? Including the area where the spiritual herbs were planted, the main hall was the most important. Everything was strictly guarded. How could someone without cultivation enter, let alone steal such a precious item? Supreme Sparrow said, I was misled by this point. That's why I carelessly underestimated him. That disciple's expression changed greatly. Teacher can't be thinking that Jiang Xiu's natal divine weapon has been repaired, right? That's something that has never happened before. Supreme Sparrow said, a person who should have been dead is standing in front of you again. He changed his appearance from an immortal to a divine capital. If it happened, what else is impossible? If that's the case, then should we just let him go to Tsong province? Supreme Sparrow said, if we keep following him like this, he won't do anything. If he truly wants to reveal his fox tail, then we must give him space. If he really is sect leader Jiang, then why did he come to Tsong province's heavenly emperor mountain? Supreme Sparrow muttered to himself, back then, there were all kinds of rumors flying around. From his behavior, it seems that he doesn't even know who harmed him. He might have come to find the culprit. The disciple on the side had a strange expression. Teacher, do you really think he's sect leader Jiang? Why are you so sure? Supreme Sparrow said, someone told me. Someone? Who? Supreme Sparrow said, do you remember that time when Jian Yi secretly came and asked for a large amount of resources? Of course I remember. It was a few months after sect leader Zhang's corpse was brought back to Qianqing school. Sect leader Ji succeeded the position and sect leader Zhang's disciples lost power in the sect. Many of them were assassinated, yet he came to ask for such a large amount of resources. I thought he wanted to take the things and run away. I remember that teacher refused. Supreme Sparrow shook his head and said, no, I gave it to him. That disciple was shocked. You gave it to him? Supreme Sparrow said, that's right. After I refused, Jian Yi came to visit late at night. He told me that it was his teacher who asked for it. He also said that he wanted to use a flying sword to transport the resources to outer space. From the positioning of the array, it would take more than 300 years to reach that place. He also showed me a funeral text. What? That disciple was shocked and in disbelief. But, Sect leader Zhang's corpse and so many witnesses at that time. Could it all be fake? Supreme Sparrow frowned and said, "Indeed, this matter is inconceivable." After that night, he disappeared. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. I also thought that I was tricked by Jian Yi. But 10 years later, when Zhang Xiu appeared in Tianqing school, I knew that Jian Yi didn't lie to me. He's back. He really isn't dead. That disciple's expression gradually changed. He finally understood why his teacher was so sure that Zhang Xiu had returned when he first saw Zhang Luoxia. Supreme Sparrow was in the limelight that Zhang Xiu was Zhang Luoxia. But he still refuses to admit it. I'll make him admit it. Supreme Sparrow said, I remember that he has friends in Song State. Of course, it's not that friend who came out to prove that he was dead. Zhang Xiu and Shangguan Zhaorong rowed a small flying boat and arrived at Song State. Young master, where are we going? Zhang Xiu had been chased here before. Later on, he even became friends with the one who chased him. However, that friend didn't seem to treat him as a friend. Thus, he knew a bit about Song State. However, he didn't know that there was a heavenly emperor mountain here, much less go there. I'm looking for someone. Perhaps I shouldn't look for him. The buildings in Song State were still the same as before. They were scattered like stars in the sky and chess pieces in an orderly manner. The streets were filled with endless streams of horses and carriages. Walking on this road, Zhang Xiu felt a sense of familiarity. He was even more familiar with this place than when he was in the Sky Travel City. Slowly, he had a sense of déjà vu as if he had been here before. In fact, he had been here before. However, the scene was different from what he remembered. He realized that it might be the memory that he had forgotten. This memory finally came back. When he stepped into the place in his memory, the forgotten memory was finally awakened. Along the way, the riverbank was filled with silence and was filled with sails. Here, Zhang Xiu had spent a lot of money for the courtesan bell. However, he couldn't remember what had happened. He had a vague impression that it should be a part of his lost memory. Guest, you've come too early. We just closed for a while. The courtesan bell selection will only start at night. Zhang Xiu nodded slightly. Is there a courtesan bell selection tonight? Today is the 7th day of the new year. It's a good day. It will be very lively tonight. Chapter 627. The houses on both sides of the river, the boats on the river, and even the texture of the water gave Zhang Xiu a sense of familiarity. The intersection with this place seemed to be the most important part of his lost memories. He called out softly, Zhao Rong. But Shangguan Zhaorong, who was standing beside him, did not respond. When Zhang Xiu turned his head to look, he found that Zhaorong was staring at the scene in front of her in a daze. What's wrong? You don't like it here? Shangguan Zhaorong came back to her senses and shook her head with a smile. How could that be? As long as you like it. After all, this was a brothel. Zhang Xiu responded and felt a bit strange. He and Shangguan Zhaorong were so compatible with this painting of heaven and earth, as if even Zhaorong belonged here. He asked, Did you bring money? A brothel was the most expensive place. Shangguan Zhaorong shook her head and said, Not much. If you need a lot, we can sell some resources. When we got off the flying boat, Elder Wushang Ke gave us a lot of pills. Of course, they also had a lot of resources. Zhang Xiu had stopped his cultivation and saved up all his resources. A month's worth of resources as a direct disciple of the Tianqing school was enough to exchange for Heaven's Inquisition money. Money was useless in the eyes of cultivators. It was like gold in the desert. If you didn't have water, gold and silver would be dung. Then let's go exchange for some. Zhang Xiu turned and left, while Shangguan Zhaorong looked back at the riverbank with a hint of nostalgia. Her eyes flashed with a strange light, and she sighed with emotion. In the immortal martial continent, there were many places where resources could be exchanged for money. At that time, it was the opposite, using money to buy some low-level cultivation resources. Of course, they would also accept resources. Guests, Please come in. The waiter saw Jiang Xiu and Zhao Rong come in and said respectfully, "What do the two guests need?" Shangguan Zhao Rong said, "We want to exchange for some money, using pills." That person heard this and bowed deeply to Jiang Xiu and Shangguan Zhao Rong. "So it's Shangxian. What level of pills do the two Shangxian want to sell?" Shangguan Zhao Rong took out the lowest level pill he had on him, level 6 yellow dragon pill. The man sucked in a breath of cold air. 1. The level 5 yellow dragon pill was meant for sky immortals, and upper sky immortals at that. Jiang Xiu was at this level before he was injured, so the sect naturally distributed the pills according to this standard. No, 1 bottle. It was said that the yellow dragon pill needed the yellow dragon grass as the main medicinal primer, and the yellow dragon grass needed the nourishment of dragon saliva to grow. Dragon saliva was the saliva of the yellow dragon. Therefore, the yellow dragon grass could only be found where the yellow dragon lived, and it was very rare. 1 bottle? The waiter's eyes widened in shock. His mouth was stuttering for a long time. What kind of joke was this? 1 pill was already so precious, but there was actually an entire bottle. Exchange for money? Shangguan Zhao Rong said, The attendant was dumbfounded. Pills of this level were priceless. Many rich officials and nobles couldn't buy one even if they had the money. It was even more precious to cultivators. The customer in front of him was actually selling a bottle of it. It was definitely a big deal. 2 upper immortals. Please wait a moment. This little one can't make the decision, so I have to ask the boss. This hall was called 8 Immortals Pavilion. It sold high-level pills, talismans, flying swords, and so on. It was the largest hall here, so they believed that the boss had this kind of wealth. Not long after, a middle-aged scholar came in. He was in a hurry. Greetings to the 2 upper immortals. This little one is the boss of this small store. I heard that the 2 upper immortals want to sell an entire bottle of yellow dragon pills. Shangguan Zhao Rong threw an entire bottle of yellow dragon pills over and said, "There are 12 pills in a bottle. Check it." The other party took it to the side of the long table. He placed a clean cloth on top of it and poured out all the pills. After checking them, he confirmed that all 12 pills were yellow dragon pills. Upper immortals, do you want spirit stones, gold pearls, silver pearls, or... These things were not easy to carry. Gold pearls required several large chests to carry. Silver pearls were even more so. Even the most valuable spirit stones required a lot. Jiang Xiu said, "Let's exchange it for banknotes." A small amount of spirit stones. The man was overjoyed. Banknotes were custom-made by the country. If they exchanged it, they would definitely spend it here. He was not only the owner of this store, but also a member of the country's royal family. Night gradually fell. Not only did the number of people on the road not decrease, it actually increased. Especially on both sides of the river, there were red lights and green wine. All kinds of music and the clamor of drinking could be heard. "Young master, you want to promote Courtesan Belle?" Jiang Xiu secretly shook his head. He had promoted Courtesan Belle once before. At that time, he wasn't the sect master of Qianqing School. Zhang Luoxia's fame wasn't that great yet, but he felt that he had done it twice. The other time should be a part of his lost memory. He didn't want to promote Courtesan Belle, but only wanted to recover his lost memory. This was an opening, and he couldn't let it go. Looking at the riverbank, an image surfaced in Jiang Xiu's mind. A woman was standing by the riverbank with an oil paper umbrella in her hand. The rain wasn't heavy and it was very clear, making one feel very comfortable. The woman was tall and dressed in snow-white clothes. In the wind and rain, under the roadside lights, she was filled with a hazy beauty. She was like a beautiful fairy in the world, deeply attracting Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu believed that any man who saw her back would be attracted to her. She was too perfect. Her long hair fluttered slightly in the wind. Her waist was thin, her hips were high, and her legs were straight and slender. Her figure was indescribably elegant. But she didn't turn around. Zhang Xiu couldn't see who she was. Big brother Zhang, big brother Zhang. Zhang Xiu seemed to hear her calling him. Young master, young master. Zhang Xiu suddenly woke up from his memories and looked at Zhao Rong in astonishment. His face was still a little shaken and confused. Zhao Rong, are you calling me? Gongzi, what's wrong with you? Zhang Xiu hurriedly looked back at the riverbank. There was no one there, and it wasn't raining. She must be someone I met. Otherwise, my memory wouldn't be so deep. Did you just call me Big Brother Zhang? Shangguan Zhao Rong's clear black and white eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. She shook her head and said, No. Is that so? Zhang Xiu said, Can you call me Big Brother Zhang? Shangguan Zhao Rong's eyelashes fluttered. She looked at him coquettishly and said, Don't you like Zhao Rong to call you Gongzi? It's to satisfy your evil taste of the old society. This was what Zhang Xiu said in certain places. Usually, he was still very cold. It was like some girls who usually spoke Mandarin, but on special occasions, they would speak some Japanese. Zhao Rong's face flushed. Her cheeks were perfect without a trace of flaw. Her skin was white and flawless. She was very shy, and the shyness of a young girl was even more charming. Calling you Big Brother Zhang is also very interesting. Shangguan Zhao Rong bit her red lips. She was so shy that she felt like she was being teased. Her delicate body was somewhat hot. Big Brother Zhang. Zhang Xiu shook his head and said, No, you should call me with a bit of sadness, a bit of helplessness, a bit of sadness. Shangguan Zhao Rong really wanted to kick her Gongzi, but she couldn't bear it. She could only endure the shame and excitement in her heart and called out, Big Brother Zhang. Call me again. Big Brother Zhang. Zhang Xiu listened to Zhao Rong's call. The doubt in his eyes gradually became stronger. Similar, too similar. Sometimes, Zhang Xiu really couldn't distinguish a girl's voice. It seemed to be very pleasant to the ears, as clear and sweet as jade beads falling to the side. When Xie Ting came out of the water and turned into a goddess, she called him Big Brother Zhang. When Shangguan Zhao Rong came out of the water, she also called him Big Brother Zhang. The back in his mind also called him Big Brother Zhang. Were they in contact before? Xie Ting and Shangguan Zhao Rong must be in contact. But what about the woman in his mind? Zhao Rong, have you been here before? Shangguan Zhao Rong felt that Zhang Xiu's eyes were very sharp, as if they could pierce through her heart. She smiled and said, No, this is Zhao Rong's first time here. Moreover, this is a brothel. If I wasn't accompanying Gongzi, Zhao Rong wouldn't come to this place. A flower boat swayed out of the river bank. When the boat appeared, the people on both sides of the river suddenly became absent-minded. Many people began to shout. It felt like when a celebrity appeared on Earth. Those fans would shout, I love you, I want to give birth to your monkey. The people in front of them were more or less the same. However, they were throwing money on the boat. It's about to begin. Chapter 628. Didn't you say you were here to find a friend? Zhang Xiu looked into the distance and hesitated. I'm looking for that old friend, but I don't know if she's still here, and if I should go find her. Who is she? Zhang Xiu turned around and went down the restaurant. He planned to go there and then make plans. In a brothel in the city, it was bustling with activity. Although it hadn't really started yet, the boat had already entered the water, which meant that this brothel would send a representative. The reputation of the brothel was very important. Since they were here to compete, then they had to compete for fame and win. Young master, you're here. Please come in. When Zhang Xiu stepped into the hall, it was very noisy inside. The guests were all dressed like dogs and horses. Gorgeously dressed beauties were shuttling back and forth between the banquet. When they saw acquaintances, they would greet them warmly and exchange a few words with them. The guests would then give them some money. Although it wasn't much, it couldn't beat the number of people. Where's the brothel keeper? The other party had sharp eyes. Seeing Zhang Xiu's unfamiliar face, he immediately went to find the brothel keeper. Although he was a stranger, he was a generous guest. "Who is it? Don't you know that I'm very busy today?" In the attic, there was a woman dressed in red with an indescribably elegant figure. In the eyes of the world, the procuress was a woman who was still gorgeously dressed even though she was old. However, the tender young girl in front of him, who looked like she was 18 years old, was unrestrained yet elegant. She gave off a clear feeling that she had emerged from the mud but was not stained by it. Seeing her, his eyes lit up. "It's this young master." Jiang Xiu looked up, his eyes cold with a bit of arrogance. When their eyes met, the other party was stunned, as if she was surprised to see Jiang Xiu. She was still here. The one in front of him was indeed a brothel keeper, an interesting one. It was just that she didn't need to become a brothel keeper. He didn't know what was wrong with her, but the elders of the sect didn't want to stay and sealed their cultivation to stay here. "I don't know. Can't you see that I'm busy?" Jiang Xiu took out a stack of banknotes. "Does the procuress recognize this?" That stack of banknotes was worth at least 10,000 taels of silver. Dozens of banknotes were worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Since she was a procuress, how could she not know about money? Ouch. "So it's you." She lifted her skirt and swayed her hips exaggeratedly as she walked down the stairs. She came to Jiang Xiu and reached out to take his banknotes. Jiang Xiu dodged without leaving a trace and came to a round table to sit down. Shangguan Zhaorong stood by his side. The procuress did not catch the money, but she was not angry. Instead, she smiled even more happily. Where did the young master come from? Jiang Xiu said, "Qingzhou." "Qingzhou is a good place. It's full of outstanding people, and there are many sections. Qingzhou is full of heroes and immortals." She gently twisted her body and sat on Jiang Xiu's lap. At such a close distance, she didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to get the money. Jiang Xiu somehow managed to avoid it. "I've been here before." "Oh." "More than once." The procuress's eyes sparkled as she stared at the banknotes. "To be precise, twice." The procuress once again reached out to grab the banknotes in Jiang Xiu's hand. Jiang Xiu stretched his hand back and the procuress's entire body was pressed against Jiang Xiu. Skin to skin, it was unknown if the procuress took advantage of Jiang Xiu or if Jiang Xiu took advantage of the procuress. Helpless, the procuress angrily said, "But the young master looks unfamiliar. This old lady has never seen you before." Jiang Xiu said, "Lonely Mountain looks back and has no home. I'm no longer the understanding flower of the world. I know who you are. You still dare to say that I'm not a patron." The procuress saw that the banknotes were out of reach and could only give up. "You're not here to play." Jiang Xiu put the banknotes on the table and said, "I want to ask you something. When was the second time I came? If you tell me, then this money is all yours." The procuress said, "Young master, you can't play like this. How would I know when was the second time you came? Can I ask you a question? For example, will this old lady drink the wine in front of me?" Jiang Xiu said, "Perhaps you should ask yourself if you want to be disfigured again." Disfigured? The procuress's face was a bit unnatural, but it disappeared in a flash. The next moment, it was filled with a smile. Her face was as smooth as a baby's. It didn't look like she had been disfigured. "This old lady is so beautiful. How could I be disfigured? Who dares to disfigure this old lady? She was indeed very beautiful. If she was willing to come down, no one else would be able to compete with her." Jiang Xiu said, "It was someone who used a knife to disfigure her own face in grief. It's a pity that after a beautiful woman loses her face, her fate is destined to be tragic. In the end, she was mercilessly abandoned by her husband. You disfigured your face for him, but he was kidnapped by a beautiful woman." The procuress's face could no longer smile. Instead, it was replaced with a terrifying chill. Jiang Xiu said, "Forcing me to remove your scar. Why bother? When was the last time you saw me?" The procuress took the banknotes from the table. "Good people don't live long. Scourges live for 1,000 years. If this old lady's temper hadn't improved over the years, you would have suffered today. He counted the banknotes and then said, "The last time I came was about 60 years ago." "What happened?" The procuress said, "How would this old lady know? At most, you slept with a girl here and then left. How would I have the time to care about your business?" Jiang Xiu said, "I voted for the courtesan Belle." The procuress then noticed that there was a Shangguan Zhao Rong dressed as a young master beside Jiang Xiu. Her eyesight was so sharp that she could see that the other was a girl. She looked pure, but her pure jade had long been ruined by a beast. "There's nothing to say. It's boring and boring." "What?" The procuress said. "You don't want to know. Speak." The procuress said, "Don't bully this old lady. If you provoke this old lady, I'll expose you. You're just a sick cat now. If you go out, you'll be crushed to death." Jiang Xiu said, "I'll remember sooner or later." The procuress's eyes flashed with a bit of panic. Jiang Xiu could even feel her body trembling slightly, as if she had remembered something terrible. "Speak." The procuress said, "I can't remember." But at this time, there was a burst of cheers from the pavilion. A girl appeared on the stage. She was wearing New Year's clothes and had a red veil over her head. She was the one competing for the courtesan Belle this year. "My daughter has come out." The procuress immediately stood up with a smile on her face. "Is it time yet?" "It's the auspicious time." The sound of gongs and drums rang out and began to send the girl out. Across from the brothel was a proper tavern. Inside, Supreme Sparrow and his disciple were standing there. His eyes were filled with certainty. He really came here. Master's guess was not wrong. Supreme Sparrow said, "If he is Zhang Luoxia, then he will definitely come here. The one who has the strongest relationship with Zhang Luoxia is this procuress. They have a life and death relationship." "Who exactly is this brothel keeper?" "She actually has such a deep relationship with Zhang Luoxia." Supreme Sparrow said, "I don't know the details, but I heard that Zhang Luoxia saved her before and she also helped Zhang Luoxia. One time, when Zhang Luoxia was in trouble, she was the one who took action." Who would have thought that the procuress was actually an immortal king? Moreover, she suppressed the other two immortal kings and beat them to death. "No way." The disciples' eyes were about to fall out of their sockets. "So you're saying that Master is not her match?" Supreme Sparrow waved his hand. "I can't fight, but as long as there is an immortal king, your master would have to run with his tail between his legs." "Then why is she staying in this smoky brothel with all kinds of greasy men? Where is the dignity of an immortal king? Is this worth it?" The disciple didn't understand. Supreme Sparrow was a bit absent-minded. Who knows, maybe only Zhang Luoxia knows why. "She's coming out." The sound of gongs and drums rang out. Many people came out from inside and surrounded the brothel representative. They followed her into the sedan chair and walked towards the river. Jiang Xiu looked at this scene and felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had seen it before. In the next moment, this feeling intensified as he saw a scene. The young girl who was standing by the riverbank was sitting on a sedan chair with a red veil over her head. She turned her head and looked at him. She reached out and gently lifted a corner of the red veil, revealing a sharp and cute chin. Chapter 629. Although only the tip of the iceberg was revealed, Jiang Xiu's heart inexplicably trembled. He actually felt a sense of familiarity, and under this familiar feeling, there was an even stronger sense of fear. Jiang Xiu felt a chill run down his back and a chill ran down the back of his head. Why was he afraid of knowing who this person was? Was it his heart's resistance? Or was it his instinctive perception of danger? The veil was never lifted, but Jiang Xiu seemed to see her sweet smile, as she once again put down the red veil with sadness and despair. Young master, young master." Jiang Xiu looked back and saw Shangguan Zhao Rong looking at him with concern. "Are you all right?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. The sedan gradually went away, and he looked at the brothel keeper with a questioning gaze, hoping that the brothel keeper would immediately give him an answer. That year, that girl had also been sent out like this, so the brothel keeper would definitely know who it was. He reached out and grabbed the brothel keeper without any politeness. Who is running for the top courtesan position? The brothel keeper said, if you want to know, vote for the top courtesan yourself. You know I'm not talking about her. The brothel keeper had already left in a hurry. Today was a grand occasion for them. There were already many boats slowly coming out of the two rivers. When the girl reached the river, she was helped onto her own boat. Young master, should we hold her up? Zhang Xiu said, hold her up, of course we'll hold her up. The two of them went to a restaurant on the river bank. He had already spent a large amount of money to reserve a seat here. From this seat, he could see the river bank. Say, if a top courtesan fell in love with a man, but there was a very strong person who wanted to take this top courtesan, if you were the top courtesan, what would you do? This was a very familiar story. Some people thought it was a femme fatale, while others thought it was a femme fatale. Her beauty allowed him to gain a beloved subject, but also caused her to face an even more terrifying plunder. There was a deafening cheer. It's coming out, it's coming out. Looking over, the boat slowly sailed out. Many people threw the flowers they had bought onto the boat. These flowers were specially made and the price was very high. This was the meaning of the so-called flower boat. The procuress was standing at the bow of the ship, holding a red roll in her hand, flirting with the customers on both sides of the ship. Shangguan Zhaorong said, if it was Zhaorong, she would definitely choose to be with the person she loves. Zhang Xiu said, but that person is very powerful. He will kill you. So be it. Shangguan Zhaorong spoke very freely and calmly. Life and death in her mouth seemed to be an ordinary matter. She was completely different from the procuress. The procuress's choice moved Zhang Xiu more, and her ending moved Zhang Xiu more. 10,000 golden flowers. Take off the veil. Zhang Xiu had been generous from the start. Whoosh! Cheers erupted on both sides of the river. This was not a small sum. 1 golden flower was worth 1 platinum coin. 10,000 golden flowers would be worth 1 million gold coins. Even the nobles would have to sell everything they had. When they were piled up on the flower boat, the originally simple boat suddenly became luxurious. The girl who was standing on the flower boat also bowed to Zhang Xiu and saluted him. Taking off the veil was the first shot in the competition for the top beauty, so it was very important. Others were willing to bet 1 million gold coins on their looks. Of course, this top beauty's price would soar. Young master, what's wrong? Zhang Xiu held his head, the veins on his forehead throbbing. Every time they throbbed, he felt a sharp pain. The scene in front of him was not the same as before. It was very similar, but it should be from last time. Last time, Zhang Xiu had also given 100,000 gold coins. She also wanted to take off the veil on the flower boat. Blood, young master, you're bleeding. Zhang Xiu was in a lot of pain. Blood kept coming out of his nose, making him look very scary. Shangguan Zhaorong anxiously used her hand to cover it, but Zhang Xiu was like a madman trying to see that person's appearance. His vision was very blurry as the veil fell from his head. Young master, don't scare me. Zhang Xiu's nose was full of blood. Even breathing became difficult for him as he lost control of himself. Although she was standing on the deck, she was right in front of him. It was hazy and he could only see her tall figure. I know. Zhang Xiu roared. Young master, don't think about it, don't look. You'll die. Zhaorong was very frightened. Her bloody hands wanted to stop Zhang Xiu's blood from flowing out. Tears came out of her eyes. I'm begging you, don't think about it anymore. Isn't it good to forget? Zhang Xiu said, it's heaven's concealment power. He finally knew the reason for his memory loss. At this moment, he could clearly feel the backlash of heaven's concealment power. It's you, Cheng Lingsu. This was definitely not the true heaven's concealment power. Otherwise, Zhang Xiu would already be dead. The power was not that strong. It was more likely the result of the Divine Emperor's great fate art. forcefully controlling Jiang Xiu's fate, not letting him know the truth, making him forget the past. "Who are you? Who are you?" Jiang Xiu roared crazily. He wanted to know who the person under the red veil was. "Is it you?" The scene in front of him gradually became clear. The red veil fluttered in the wind, flying away from the slender fingertips painted with red nail polish. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu's entire body shook. All of his cries disappeared at this moment. His nose was still bleeding, but when he saw clearly, it was as if time had stopped. He was also stunned. A heart-wrenching pain, as if his heart was being torn apart. "How could it be you?" he cried out in shock. At this moment, everyone in the restaurant noticed the situation on his side. Zhao Rong was also stunned and did not move. Her eyes became very dim, as if her spirit had suddenly disappeared. In her memory, Jiang Xiu was piling up money. 100,000 golden flowers. 1 million. 100 million. The flower bed was piled with golden flowers. Under the lights of the two sides of the boat, it was very eye-catching. However, with so much golden light, the boat sank, causing everyone to cheer. The boat sank under the weight of gold. This was definitely a story that would last for eternity. "How could it be you?" Jiang Xiu seemed to have lost his ability to think. It was as if his head had been pierced by a bullet. His body fell backward stiffly. Zhao Rong wanted to reach out to pull him up, but it was too late. With a bang, his whole body fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His eyes were staring at the ground from beginning to end, but there was no trace of life in them. Supreme Sparrow and his disciple were opposite and just happened to see this scene. His disciple said in astonishment, "Not good, something seems to have happened to Sect Master Jiang. He seems to be bleeding non-stop." Supreme Sparrow was also stunned. This happened all of a sudden. "Master, what should we do?" Supreme Sparrow was also in a mess. He did not know if Jiang Xiu's situation was serious or if he should show himself. Once he showed himself, he would be exposed. Jiang Xiu's next thing might be stopped, and he might not be able to find anything to use against him. He should be fine, right? He was an immortal king. If someone attacked at such a close distance, even if the other party was also an immortal king, he would definitely be able to sense it. He could not think of any possibility that Jiang Xiu's injuries would be so serious that he would be in danger. Hence, he decided to wait and see. "Young master." Shangguan Zhao Rong reached out and grabbed Jiang Xiu's hand. She placed her hand on his pulse and her tear-stained face slowly calmed down. Her eyes flashed with a strange light. When Jiang Xiu woke up again, he was lying on a warm boat. Moreover, it was very quiet outside. There was not a single sound. There was also a warm light shining in through the wooden window and onto the study table. He realized that it should be the second day. He was even rescued and brought here. The furnishings were the same. Even the table was the same. There was a unique fragrance on the sheets. This was his old friend's room. The door was pushed open and Zhao Rong came in with a faceplate. Beside her was the old procuress. "You are from Jialan?" "Yes." The procuress said, "How long have you been with him?" "Less than a year." The procuress said, "He is becoming more and more unrestrained. In less than a year, he already laid his hands on you. He used to be very picky. It seems like after becoming a sick cat, he can't be arrogant anymore. If there is something to eat, he will eat." Zhao Rong placed the face plate on the table and lowered her charming face in embarrassment. "No, it's not like that." If it wasn't for the fact that they had encountered a desperate situation, Shangguan Zhao Rong felt that taking the last step with Jiang Xiu would be very difficult. It might even be impossible. Shy. Ha ha. The procuress had been in brothels for many years and knew how to use this trick. That guy is awake. Chapter 630. Shangguan Zhao Rong brought a hot towel over and sat on the edge of the bed, gently wiping Jiang Xiu's face. She was very careful, but there was a trace of indescribable loneliness in her eyes. The procuress sat down behind a long table. There was a zither on the table. She casually plucked the strings, letting out a pleasant but chaotic sound. "Do you see it? Do you know who it is?" Zhang Xiu's face was as indifferent as ever. "I see it." But this result was something that Zhang Xiu could never have imagined. When that scene appeared in his mind, his heart faintly ached and his cheeks tightened. "I already told you, you didn't want to see it." Zhang Xiu got off the bed and walked to the window. Outside was a quiet courtyard. "I really didn't expect it to be her. Now I'm even more confused." That face, that person, had once been his spiritual support. She had been his spiritual sustenance ever since he came to the immortal martial continent, even though everything had already collapsed on Earth. How did she appear here? What was her identity? My matter, is it related to her? The procuress nodded and said, I vaguely saw the first time you saw her. That excitement and joy, but what she brought you was your disappearance and your confirmed death more than 10 years ago." Zhang Xiu said, "What exactly happened?" The procuress did not reply. "Since you remember, then take your time to think about it. It's not convenient for me to say too much. Moreover, what I saw might not be the entire truth." Indeed, everyone's perspective was different. Different perspectives would lead to different feelings. Otherwise, how could there be so many unjust and false cases in the world? Did that girl become the top courtesan? The procuress said, "Of course. You were so generous, throwing out 10,000 golden flowers in one go. Even the bridal chamber was prepared for you. Who knew that you would faint for an entire night? If you want to go over now, that's fine." How could Zhang Xiu be in the mood? Moreover, this old friend knew Zhang Xiu's character. He was just joking. Let that girl stand in the courtyard. Zhang Xiu had a very strong feeling towards the courtyard outside the window. Not long later, that girl gracefully appeared in the courtyard. The sunlight was very dazzling, shining on the green grass in the courtyard. The sunlight dazzled Zhang Xiu's eyes. He saw Cheng Lingran dressed in ancient clothing running in the courtyard. She was as happy as a child, giggling non-stop. "Big brother Zhang, come chase me. Chase me. Come." Zhang Xiu's head began to hurt again. Zhao Rong anxiously called out, "Young master, don't think about it anymore. Quickly stop." The brothel keeper's face also changed greatly. Blood kept gushing out from Zhang Xiu's nose. His nose was stuffed, which made it difficult for him to breathe. It looked very scary. How can this be? What's going on? Zhang Xiu couldn't recall anything. His nose was already bleeding all over his chest. How can you be like this? Zhang Xiu did not answer the procuress and looked at Zhao Rong with astonishment. Zhao Rong showed a worried face. "Young master, you must pay attention to your body, it's too dangerous." Yes, the power of the heavenly mysteries was enough to destroy everything. Those who tried to challenge it would not have a good ending. Zhang Xiu kept wiping his nose's blood with a towel. "What happened next? How much do you know?" The procuress said, "Basically, I don't know what happened after you left for the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I heard you went missing, so I went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I didn't find any clues, only a lot of rumors. After all these years, I have no way to prove it. Even if I can prove it, I can't do anything." Zhang Xiu threw the towel into the basin and said, "Let's go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain." "Huh?" The procuress said, "Are you looking for death? You're just a sick cat, and you want to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Do you want to take down the people who harmed you and let you die again when they know you're back?" Indeed, to be able to cause Zhang Luoxia, who was at his peak, to suffer, they were definitely all celestial kings. Given Zhang Xiu's current situation, once he attracted the suspicion of those people, they would definitely make a move against him. In truth, the brothel keeper felt that it was a very big risk for him to come looking for her, but she also knew that Zhang Xiu wanted to know the truth too much. "How did you lose your memory? It's too infuriating." Zhang Xiu now knew that he did not lose his memory, but that Chang Ling-su used the Great Fate technique to shield it, forming a layer of heavenly mysteries. He did not know the specific reason, but the purpose was to make him unable to remember what happened at that time. How about, you accompany me to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? The procuress looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief and was very surprised. Are you begging me? Jiang Xiu said, how is this begging? Okay, come to my room tonight. Shangguan Zhao Rong's face revealed a strange expression, and she shyly turned away. Jiang Xiu frowned. Why did I go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain that year? The procuress said, of course it was to obtain more power. Many people do not know how to walk the path of the immortal king, and you are the same. However, you have an advantage over others. The Qianqing school has the immortal emperor level cultivation method, Heavenly Reflection, which is ranked 9th in the immortal martial continent. You should have received some inspiration. You know, even with our relationship, we can't ask too much about this kind of thing. Indeed, the cultivation methods of sects were taboo, and generally would not be touched. Of course, discussing cultivation experience was one thing, but asking about other people's cultivation methods was absolutely forbidden. Jiang Xiu said, it was to find the path of the immortal emperor. I'm afraid only this point can attract Jiang Xiu. Did I go alone, or was there someone else? The procuress said, this all happened after you left here, so I don't know. Are you hungry? Eat something first. Jiang Xiu really wanted to know what Cheng Lingren's appearance had done to him, and why Chang Lingsu had used the Great Destiny technique to conceal all of this. He hadn't seen the procuress for a long time, and after eating, they didn't talk about these things. These years, the procuress had always been here, and she didn't get tired of it. She actually said that her greatest joy was to see her daughters grow up into great families. This was simply destroying his worldview. Shangguan Zhao Rong was a Tongfang maidservant, and Jiang Xiu and the procuress had not seen each other for many years, so she did not attend. She was alone in the courtyard, slowly pacing back and forth, her head lowered, looking at the tips of her feet. Her face was filled with a gloomy expression, filled with worry, very different from her usual clear and bright appearance. Your servant girl is not bad. It seems like you like her very much. Jiang Xiu sighed. He liked the Shangguan Zhao Rong from that night more than after she fell into the water. Perhaps falling into the water was a knot in his heart, as if Zhao Rong was tainted the moment she fell into the water, becoming impure. Have you heard of Buzhou? The procuress said, of course I've heard of it. I think you told me. I told you. Jiang Xiu was very surprised. The first time he heard of it, it was also Shangguan Zhao Rong who took care of him. Before this, he didn't even know there was a Western Zhou. I told you last time. The procuress said, is this also a part of your memory loss? Let's not worry about that for now. What did you say about Buzhou? Jiang Xiu said, you should have heard of the legend of Buzhou's goddess. It is said that a goddess appeared after the Buzhou god fell. She saved the land from floods and allowed another world to descend, creating the immortal martial arts of today. Last time you only told me that there was such a goddess, but you didn't mention that it was her arrival that created the immortal martial arts of today. The procuress was quite shocked by this news. Jiang Xiu said, after that, every once in a while, the goddess would borrow another person's body and descend here to see her own masterpiece. Is it related to your concubine servant girl? Jiang Xiu first nodded, then shook his head. He wasn't sure himself. I also don't know. However, when he mentioned the formation of the immortal martial continent, he thought of a possibility. The immortal martial continent was the original world that merged with the descended world. Then what about Zhao Rong? Could it be that the original Zhao Rong merged with the goddess? But in his memories, there was a girl who looked exactly like Chang Lingran, and she called him Big Brother Jiang. Was it a coincidence? After all, his surname was Jiang. A girl would most likely call him Big Brother Jiang. Come with me to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I want to clarify things. Then come to my room tonight. The procuress's expression was also very deep. Chapter 631. Just as the brothel keeper had said, it was too dangerous to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Therefore, Jiang Xiu wanted to take the brothel keeper to be his bodyguard. However, it seemed too conspicuous to do so. If he was Jiang Xiu and was only a passerby, how could the brothel keeper treat him so well? However, after all these years, they already thought that Jiang Xiu was dead and would not care too much about this matter. This was Jiang Xiu's only fortune. He must go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. In the end, the brothel keeper did not follow him. Jiang Xiu's only son could go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in peace. However, it would be too conspicuous if the brothel keeper followed him. Not to mention, they still needed to investigate what had happened in the past. However, the Supreme Sparrow had already set his eyes on Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu and Shangguan Zhaorong had departed in the wee hours of the same day. Usually, the guests at the brothel would also leave at this time. It was not strange. Before leaving, the brothel keeper called Jiang Xiu to the side and told him something that Jiang Xiu did not want to know. Shui Wuyao has gone mad. Most likely, he also experienced what happened in the past. What, he is also there? The brothel keeper said, yes. Jiang Xiu was extremely shocked. Shui Wuyao was another old friend of his. This person was a passionate person who loved to drink and kill. However, he would never kill a nameless person. When he was on the green spirit list, Feng Wuchen and Shui Wuyao had whistled through the sky. This person's sword skills were definitely not below Elder Wan Jian. His sword was half of his soul. He is also mad. How did he go mad? The brothel keeper shook her head. Now, he is bound by shackles and stares blankly at the wall every day. I secretly went to his sect to see him for a while. He is still in a daze and completely useless. Jiang Xiu said, but he's not in Song province. Why? Jiang Xiu's heart ached as he recalled the misty sword dance's long robes fluttering in the wind. Speaking of which, this person was very interesting. After Zhang Luo became famous, his cultivation speed increased by leaps and bounds. This person came because of his fame and fought with Jiang Xiu. In the end, Jiang Xiu was defeated. He actually pestered Jiang Xiu to become friends with him. This was the first time that Jiang Xiu had seen such a shameless and unrestrained person. Which one of them didn't feel indignant after losing and return home to cultivate bitterly, hoping to wash away the shame one day? That guy even said that he looked like a girl and that he had reincarnated in the wrong body. He should have been a girl, so he could be in love with Jiang Xiu. In short, he was gay and very open-minded. How could he go crazy? No one knows the details. The brothel keeper said, such a sword Dao immortal king was crippled like this. Of course, his sect was unwilling and pulled him to Heavenly Emperor Mountain. However, once he reached the foot of Heavenly Emperor Mountain, they couldn't pull him up no matter what. It seemed that he was very scared. Jiang Xiu said, is Heavenly Emperor Mountain very scary? It's just a mountain. The brothel keeper shook her head. Jiang Xiu looked towards Shangguan Zhaorong. She might know some of his origins, but Zhaorong also shook her head and said, Heavenly Emperor Mountain is an ancient mountain range. There's nothing special about it. Jiang Xiu asked, you don't know anything? He knows how to kill people. The brothel keeper said, the sword in his hand has become sharper, and his sword cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. After all, after reaching the immortal king realm, especially for a sword cultivator, it is extremely difficult for him to improve his sword cultivation. He's really crazy and terrifying. His hair is disheveled, and he looks a bit like the old lunatic from back then. He's even crazier than the old lunatic. Jiang Xiu couldn't believe that the carefree Shui Wuyao was related to the old lunatic. Right now, he doesn't remember anything else. He's even taking care of himself. However, as soon as he comes into contact with the Sword King style is revealed. Moreover, when the sword is drawn, it must see blood and kill people. If he doesn't kill people, he won't be able to calm down. Jiang Xiu said, so strange. This indeed sounded like a mental disorder, and not something concealed by the mysteries of the heavens. Could it be that I'm not the only one who met with mishap on Heavenly Emperor Mountain? What exactly happened? The brothel keeper said, if you don't go to Heavenly Emperor Mountain, you can go see Shui Wuyao. However, I'm afraid he won't recognize you. You decide. It seemed that the brothel keeper didn't want him to go to Heavenly Emperor Mountain when she told him this news. After all, there was a great risk. Zhang Xiu said, it's the same. If I go to see you and then see Shui Wuyao, Zhang Luoxia's traces will be too obvious. These two were Zhang Xiu's best friends in the past. It would arouse too much suspicion. The disciple of the Supreme Vermilion Bird who was guarding the brothel woke up the Supreme Vermilion Bird who was meditating cross-legged. Teacher, he is coming out. It seems he is leaving. Indeed, the Supreme Vermilion Bird came to the window immediately. Indeed, he saw Zhang Xiu coming out. He summoned the flying boat and headed to the south. South, he is going to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. He is still going to investigate what happened in the past. And you still say it's not Zhang Luoxia. Teacher, what should we do? The Supreme Vermilion Bird said, of course we will follow him. He gives me a feeling of urgency, or does he feel that he is being secretive? So what if he knows what happened in the past? With your current strength you can do nothing. The flying boat did not fly fast at night. With the full moon hanging in the sky and the black clouds filling the air, it carried the silence and depth of the night. People who were timid would not be willing to travel at night. Young master, must we go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Yes, we must go. Zhang Xiu felt Zhao Rong's warm body close to him. She hugged him and said softly, young master, Zhao Rong is scared, very scared. Scared? Zhang Xiu said, there is nothing to be scared of. It is only a mountain. At most, something shameful happened on it. Once the ugly and dark things are exposed, they are worthless. Since he went out because of the sky mirror, although something happened along the way, he still went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in the end. Zhang Xiu had reason to suspect that there might be an opportunity to become an immortal emperor in the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Then, there might be a human-shaped distortion and a shocking change. There were only two possibilities. One was that it was a trap set against him. The other was that it was an accident caused by the opportunity to become an immortal emperor. And with the appearance of Chang Lingran, the possibility of it being a fight for the opportunity to become an immortal emperor decreased. It was more likely that it was a trap set against him. The seed of hatred sprouted in his heart. He did not expect that Chang Lingsu's hand would stretch so far. You are your immortal emperor, and I am my Qianqing school principal. Everyone is at peace. Why did you interfere with my life? Could it be that you want to control my fate? Young master, if I die, will you be sad? Zhang Xiu looked back. Zhao Rong's beautiful face was frowning slightly. There was resentment in her eyes, and she looked pitiful. Of course I will. You can always stay by my side. Other than Chang Lingran, he could not say any touching words of love. His heart was once blinded by arrogance and bloody betrayal. Now, his heart was as cold as ice. However, ordinary tenderness could not melt it. Young master. Zhang Xiu pressed his head hard again. Blood flowed from his nose again. On the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Zhang Xiu pointed a sword at Chang Lingran. It seemed that he was questioning her. Chang Lingran's tears were flying. Young master. Zhang Xiu suddenly closed his eyes. He saw his sword stabbing out. He felt a heart-wrenching pain, but he saw a splash of blood. I killed her? His nose was full of blood. He breathed with difficulty. He could not believe it. Shangguan Zhao Rong looked at Zhang Xiu sadly. Will you kill her again? Zhang Xiu wiped the blood from his nose with his hand. He did not hear Shangguan Zhao Rong's words clearly just now. He was still in a violent shock. Did he kill Cheng Lingran? Why did he kill her? Young master, don't think about it anymore. Your body can't take it. She let the flying boat land beside the stream. Zhao Rong went down to fetch some water. She washed the blood from Jiang Xiu's face and let Jiang Xiu recover his former handsome appearance. However, Jiang Xiu sat on a rock beside the stream and lost his mind. Why did he kill her with a sword? What did she do to him? He remembered Cheng Lingren's betrayal on earth. His eyes were indescribably sad. And in this sadness, there was endless indifference. How about, we don't go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Shangguan Zhaorong said in a low voice. Why not? Shangguan Zhaorong said, if this continues, young master, you will not be able to withstand the power of the heavenly secrets. You will die. Jiang Xiu's outbursts were getting more and more frequent. She believed that the closer he got to the truth, the stronger the power of the heavenly secrets would be. Sooner or later, he would not be able to withstand it. How do you know it's the power of the heavenly secrets? Jiang Xiu looked at her coldly. Who are you? He could take her life with just a light slash of his sword. I was thinking, if I could kill you earlier, would you have a way to descend again? Young master. Shangguan Zhaorong's face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. In the distant dark clouds, Wushang Sparrow and his disciple were hiding. His disciple shouted excitedly and helplessly, Master, why did Zhang Luoxia suddenly want to kill his maid? Even the Supreme Sparrow was stunned. Just what in the world was going on right now? What's going on? He won't really do it, right? Everything happened too suddenly. Say it. I'll give you a chance to explain everything clearly. If you don't, I'd rather you leave here with these secrets forever. Jiang Xiu wanted to recover his memory for two reasons. First, he wanted to satisfy his curiosity and desire for knowledge. Second, he wanted to prove that this matter was related to some people in the Tianqing school. He wanted to take back the position of the Lord in the name of sin and punish all the traitors who betrayed him. But now that he knew the truth, he didn't want to get involved in it anymore. As for taking back the position of the Lord, he had the great God sealing skill in his hands. When he mastered it, he would definitely be able to take back the position of the Lord, and even reach the divine emperor realm that he couldn't reach before. Say it, or I'll make you disappear from this world. His eyes were extremely resolute. Once Zhang Luoxia made a decision, he would never change it. Young master. Tears fell from Shangguan Zhaorong's eyes. She shook her head gently. Her eyes were full of fear, helplessness, and more than that, confusion. Looking at such tearful eyes, anyone would doubt their own judgment, but Jiang Xiu wouldn't. You're courting death. Jiang Xiu's sword had already stabbed out. The sharp sword light broke through the void and stabbed into Shangguan Zhaorong's body fiercely. Even the air was pierced by the sword. How could the delicate body of an ordinary person withstand it? The tip of the sword pierced into her body, and blood flowed out. The bright red color dyed her white clothes red, like a beautiful plum blossom blooming in the cold snow. God, he really killed her. Wushang Sparrow and his disciple cried out in surprise. What's going on? Wushang Sparrow knew Jiang Xiu's temperament. Although he was domineering and looked down on the world, he was definitely not a person who would kill indiscriminately. He must have a reason to kill. Moreover, the person who was so close to him was his woman. How could he be so heartless? Ah! Shangguan Zhaorong's eyes widened in disbelief. She lowered her head to look at the long sword that had pierced her body and the bright red wound. She even suspected that the pain of being stabbed by the sword was an illusion, but the facts told her that it wasn't. Jiang Xiu really wanted to kill her. The pain and fear made her beautiful face break out in a cold sweat. She painfully and desperately said, Young master, do you really want Zhaorong to die? Jiang Xiu's sword moved forward. The sword was very sharp, capable of splitting mountains and breaking jade. Even the slightest breeze could cut through hair. Her body was like tofu under the sword's edge. It went in even more. Zhaorong opened her mouth in pain, but she couldn't make a sound. Didn't you say that your life is mine? Since that's the case, if I want you to die, then you will die. The muscles under Zhang Xiu's eyes twitched fiercely. Although he was looking directly at Zhao Rong, his eyes were unfocused and numb, like a cold and empty soul. Young master. A teardrop fell from Zhao Rong's eyes and ran down her cheek. It fell on the stone egg, dripping with blood, and shattered into pieces. You are really so heartless. Ha ha. Shangguan Zhao Rong finally roared in pain and madness. A fierce light burst out from the wound that was pierced by the sword. The light was dazzling, ancient and boundless and powerful. It was so powerful that it made the world tremble. At this moment, the entire mountain range trembled. The clouds in the sky swept over, the trees on the ground swayed, and the stream became still. What is going on? In the sky, the flying boat of the Supreme Sparrow in the dark clouds was blown away and rolled in the sky. The Supreme Sparrow and his disciple grabbed the flying boat in a sorry state and almost fell down. How can a mere mortal girl contain such a powerful force in her body? Even the Supreme Sparrow, an immortal monarch, was shocked by this power. She is definitely not an ordinary person. The entire mountain range was howling in grief. The strong light covered the heaven and earth, and nothing else could be seen. Zhang Xiu was in the middle of it. He closed his eyes in shock, and his long hair and clothes were fluttering violently in the wind. As expected, she is not. If it was Zhao Rong, how could she have such a heaven-defying power? Only an ancient goddess would have such a terrifying power. Even an immortal monarch would be shocked and afraid of her. Die for me! At this moment, Zhang Xiu's power also burst forth in an instant, radiating a dazzling light. Seeing that the long sword was forcibly pushed out by the opponent's power, he suddenly stabbed forward again. Boom! The power exploded, shaking the heavens and the earth. As expected, the Supreme Sparrow saw the power in Zhang Xiu's body. He revealed an expression as if he had expected it. Zhang Xiu's natal divine weapon had already recovered. No, this power is not only at the level of a heavenly deity. Heavens, this is the power of a great heavenly deity. The Supreme Sparrow was shocked and lost his self-control again. This cultivation speed was too exaggerated. Flying 90,000 miles was not enough to describe Zhang Xiu's cultivation speed. How is this possible? His disciple was also dumbstruck. Did the three words Zhang Luoxia really have any magic power? Was he really here to torture and humiliate everyone in the immortal martial continent? Even if he disappeared, it had only been 60 years. Moreover, he knew that Zhang Xiu had just broken through to the heavenly deity realm when he came to the Qianqing school. Chapter 633. He really is a great deity. The power on Zhang Xiu's body was definitely that of a great deity at the consummate level of the wind laws. The blade of his sword was imbued with an incomparably violent gale. What in the world happened? Wushang Sparrow's mind was completely stupefied. Zhang Xiu's maid had erupted with a power that even immortal kings were afraid of, and Zhang Xiu had actually reached the great deity level in a few short months. Everything had already exceeded Wushang Sparrow's expectations. He felt that he already didn't recognize this world. It was completely incomprehensible. Master, what in the world is going on? Wushang Sparrow shook his head, unable to answer. Zhang Luoxia would never speak without thinking. The results have proven that he was right. His maid is not an ordinary person. Zhang Xiu was very calm, but even more so, he was terrifyingly decisive. You really are a goddess. At this very moment, Shangguan Zhao Rong already had no way to deny it. You want to kill me just to prove this point? Her eyes flashed with pain. This was definitely not physical pain, but mental pain. Zhang Xiu's eyes were ice cold, his long sword continuously piercing into her. He wanted to kill her. Killing me is equivalent to killing Shangguan Zhao Rong. In the past, Zhang Xiu didn't understand why the descending goddess behavior was so similar to Shangguan Zhao Rong, but when Zhang Xiu told the procuress about the immortal martial continent's formation after the descent of the goddess, he suddenly understood. The reason why the goddess descended and occupied Shangguan Zhao Rong's body was the same. Shangguan Zhao Rong didn't die from then on, she had fused with the goddess. The goddess was Shangguan Zhao Rong, and Shangguan Zhao Rong was also a goddess. She had Shangguan Zhao Rong's memories, and also Shangguan Zhao Rong's personality, but at the same time, she also had the goddess' thoughts and memories. Yes, killing you is equivalent to killing Zhao Rong. Zhang Xiu's expression was firm, and his eyes were ice-cold. But you are already not the real Shangguan Zhao Rong. Zhang Xiu said, "Tell me, what happened 60 years ago, what happened at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain?" Shangguan Zhao Rong watched as the sword continued to stab into her body under the strong light. She was too weak. Just like on Earth, a mere demigod could cremate her. "No, I don't understand. Young master, I am Zhao Rong." Her eyes were filled with grief as she looked at Zhang Xiu pleadingly. "Don't kill Zhao Rong." Zhang Xiu said, "Tell me, and maybe I'll let you go." "Say what?" Shangguan Zhao Rong's face was pained. "Zhao Rong does not know what young master wants me to say. No, young master. It hurts, Zhao Rong will die." Zhang Xiu said, "What's your relationship with Cheng Lingran?" "Zhao Rong does not know Cheng Lingran." A trace of pain flashed across Zhang Xiu's eyes. "Why don't you admit it? I already saw it. I already saw Cheng Lingran. Tell me, are you Cheng Lingran?" Zhao Rong really does not know Cheng Lingran. Her pained face twisted. Zhang Xiu roared, "Enough, stop acting. If you are not Shangguan Zhao Rong, how can you have such power? Your true body did not descend, but if you did, I believe you should be at the divine emperor level." She shook her head in pain. "It's true, young master, I really am Shangguan Zhao Rong." "If you don't admit it, then die." Zhang Xiu's sword pierced her eyes little by little. She opened her mouth wide in pain as the tip of the sword came out from her back. Her entire body froze, and any movement would bring severe pain. "Leave her body, or else you will die." She shook her head and did not speak. "Let's die together." "Ah!" She grasped Zhang Xiu's sword that pierced her body and suddenly pulled it out. An incomparably dazzling light burst out from inside, and she screamed in pain. The light burst out, and the entire mountain range, above the 9 heavens, was as bright as day. A fierce wave of air pushed out like a tsunami, forming a powerful shock wave that swept past. "Zhao Rong!" Zhang Xiu screamed in horror. He rushed over against the strong light and supported her. Zhao Rong's body was twitching, and blood kept pouring out of her mouth. "No, don't die, don't die. Young master." Shangguan Zhao Rong stretched out her slender hand with difficulty and stroked Zhang Xiu's marble-like face. "Don't be sad, Zhao Rong will always be your maid." A line of tears hung from the corner of her eyes. "Zhao Rong." Zhang Xiu painfully closed his eyes, feeling the last touch of Zhao Rong's gentle touch on his face. "This is for you." In her hand was a blood-red pill. "What is this?" Zhao Rong said with difficulty, "The essence blood of the true god Buzhou's coiling dragon snake." Zhang Xiu said, "You are Zhao Rong?" "Young master, don't forget Zhao Rong." Blood gushed out of her mouth. She struggled to close her eyes and cut off her last trace of life. Above the clouds in the sky, a huge image of a goddess slowly condensed into a cloud. Zhao Rong. Zhang Xiu thought of the first time he saw her. At that time, Zhang Xiu looked at everything coldly, thinking that this maid would be like the countless passers-by in his life, quickly passing by. But now, he would never be able to forget her. Dead. The two people on the flying boat were also a bit sad. Actually, Zhang Luoxia didn't want to kill her? The disciple said, "Right? Master, she was the one who pulled out the sword. If she didn't, with the immortal doctor's methods, she should have been able to keep her life." The Supreme Sparrow nodded. "It's a pity that she pulled out the sword. That maid should have known that pulling out the sword would kill her, but she still pulled it out." A tear fell from Zhang Xiu's eye. In the sky above his head was a goddess cloud image. On earth, After Xie Ting was burned to death, there was a goddess cloud image in the sky. The one who died was Xie Ting, but the goddess survived. This time was probably the same. The one who died was Shangguan Zhao Rong, but the goddess also survived, including the cloud image in the sky of Buzhou. This might be a secret technique, or it might be a Protoss ability. Zhang Xiu dug a very, very deep pit at the side. It was at least 3 feet deep, so that Shangguan Zhao Rong's corpse would be spared from the pain of snakes and insects. He wrote on the tombstone, Shangguan Zhao Rong's tomb, signed by Zhang Xiu. Perhaps the soul had been tainted, but the body was clean, it completely belonged to Shangguan Zhao Rong. He placed red candles on the grave and placed wine cups. 1 cup, 1 cup. It's also a title for you. He sat on the grave and watched the sunrise and sunset. He didn't know how much time had passed. One day, when the sun set, he woke up and left. Seeing Zhang Xiu leave, the Supreme Sparrow and the disciples on the flying boat regained their spirit. Okay, we're finally going to go. We've been waiting for so long. Let's follow him. The flying boat shuttled through the sky one after the other. Zhang Xiu's destination did not change, it was still the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. However, Zhang Xiu would never have thought that not long after he left, flowers bloomed on Shangguan Zhao Rong's grave. Originally, the graveyard was barren. Even the soil was loosened, and there were many crushed stones on it. Green grass and flowers kept growing from below, blooming and bearing fruit. In the next moment, it became lush. After a few days, Zhang Xiu arrived at the city of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. This place was as lively as the Skyline City. However, there were no sects nearby, and the legend of the Heavenly Emperor was spread here. According to the legend, there was once an immortal emperor-level powerhouse who called himself the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor Mountain was his Tao field. Those who were fated could obtain an emperor-level opportunity here. Of course, the people here believed it without a doubt. Many people felt that they would be the next Heavenly Emperor. For this reason, they worked hard to cultivate and constantly strengthen themselves. We're finally here. On the flying boat, Zhang Xiu looked at the continuous mountain range in front of him. It was different from the mountains in the past. The mountain range here was covered with thick clouds and mist. He could only see the mountain range under the clouds, but he couldn't see the true appearance of the mountain range. He finally understood why there were no sects here. Most likely, the clouds and mist didn't contain spiritual qi. It was not suitable for cultivation. Even the spiritual trees and great demons wouldn't grow in the mountains. Zhang Xiu once again saw the scene. It was his memories. Blood flowed out of his nose. If it wasn't for Zhang Xiu forcefully enduring the backlash of the power of Heaven's secret's concealment, he would also have recalled the past. That was why the goddess was flustered. Because if this continued, Zhang Xiu would know the truth of what happened back then sooner or later. That was why she let slip that Zhang Xiu couldn't withstand the power of Heaven's secret's concealment. He took out the essence blood of God Buzhou's coiling flying dragon snake, which Zhao Rong gave him before she died, and swallowed it. Chapter 634. Zhang Xiu still didn't know the exact effects of consuming the blood essence pill. However, one thing was for sure, the blood essence of an ancient deity could greatly strengthen one's life force. And the power of the backlash from concealing the mysteries of the heavens would destroy one's life force the most. It would make it impossible for one to survive. Indeed, the backlash from continuously peeking into the mysteries of the heavens would become stronger each time. His body could no longer bear it. However, there was still some distance before he knew the truth. It was not enough for him to hold on until the end. And this blood essence pill, Zhang Xiu had reason to suspect that it was Zhao Rong's final help to him. It made him recall what happened 60 years ago. After consuming the blood essence, the medicinal effect did not burst forth violently all of a sudden. Instead, it was very gentle. Most likely, this was done deliberately by Zhao Rong. The blood essence of an ancient deity was not something a great deity like him could bear. Once the medicinal effect was too strong and his body could not bear it, the result would be death. Overdose. However, the blood essence only emitted a red light. It was enough to resist the backlash from the power of the heavens. It formed a kind of tenacious life force. His head hurt as if it was being chewed to pieces. However, he still endured it. He widened his pair of blood-red eyes and headed towards the heavenly Emperor Mountain. The flying boat found the location in his memory. Is it here? Zhang Xiu jumped down from the flying boat. In the next moment, he appeared in the mountain. Teacher, he jumped down. The supreme vermilion bird nodded slightly. With his judgment, Zhang Xiu should have remembered many things. Zhang Xiu had directly arrived at his destination. What exactly happened in the past? I am very curious. How could such an all-powerful figure like the sovereign of a generation suddenly disappear? 1,000-mile dam can be destroyed by an ant's nest. The supreme vermilion bird firmly believed that no matter how strong and impregnable a person was, once someone dug out his weakness, no matter how small it was, he would collapse. Zhang Xiu's disappearance was definitely passive. He should have been defeated. Who dares to harm him? There was a consensus in the Qianqing school that Zhang Luoxia was no ordinary celestial king. He had been in the celestial king realm for hundreds of years and still had the heavenly mirror, which was ranked 9th in the celestial martial arts. If he really wanted to escape, no matter how many celestial kings there were, they wouldn't be able to stop him unless they put their lives on the line. However, which celestial king was willing to put their lives on the line to stop Zhang Xiu? In theory, unless it was those people who stood at the very top of the pyramid in the immortal martial continent, they wouldn't have any interactions with Zhang Xiu. He wouldn't attack Zhang Xiu. If they had really taken action, the Ji Daozong and the others wouldn't have tried so hard to hide the truth. They saw that Zhang Xiu had walked to the top of a cliff. Below the cliff, clouds of smoke were floating. He stretched out his body and looked down. The gray clouds were rolling, and below the clouds was a huge whirlpool space. It was this whirlpool that created the strange scene in the celestial Emperor Mountain. Zhang Xiu picked up a stone and gently threw it down. The stone fell and passed through the clouds of smoke. However, when it came into contact with the huge whirlpool below, it suddenly disappeared. Even with Zhang Xiu's amazing eyesight, he couldn't tell whether the stone had disappeared or been suppressed into nothingness. This is the tomb of the celestial emperor? He remembered that there were many people standing on the cliff, and they were all familiar faces. Behind him were the Ji Daozong, Tang Tian, Li Zhuoyang, and not far away was the Taihua sect master Jiang Shituo and his old friend Yan Longyue. He also saw the emaciated corpse god Taoist, and the world's most beautiful Hua Luing. They seemed to be discussing something. Although Zhang Xiu couldn't remember, he could guess that they must be discussing the tomb of the celestial emperor. He saw a dark shadow shoot out from the whirlpool below. Zhang Xiu's eyes widened. It was a stone that shot out from the whirlpool. He caught it in his hand. It was the stone that he had just thrown down. The size of the stone was the same, but the stone had changed. As for what exactly had changed, Zhang Xiu couldn't figure it out. It's time. Suddenly, his heart moved. The stone in his hand had been given a long time. It felt like hundreds or thousands of years had passed. The degree of carbonization was completely different. He was thinking that if he had thrown down a living thing, it would have aged instantly. Would it have died, or come out as a demon? What if it had been a human? At that time, this group of people must have been thinking about this question. Who would be willing to go down? However, according to normal logic, such a fast time was probably not a living thing. Even a celestial king might not be able to withstand it. The lifespan of a celestial king wasn't eternal. Every one of them had a limit. Moreover, time passed so fast that the changes in their bodily functions couldn't keep up at all. Did anyone go down at that time? Zhang Xiu tried hard to recall. They would definitely find a living thing to try, Zhang Xiu thought in his mind. Everyone's eyes fell on Cheng Lingran. Zhang Xiu didn't understand why, but he could feel that Cheng Lingran was very scared at that time and hid behind him. At that time, Cheng Lingran was the most worthless. It wouldn't be a pity if she died. On the other hand, they were all celestial kings. They were very honorable. Of course, Jiang Xiu couldn't accept it. Cheng Lingran was even more important than his life at that time. And there were Jiang Shituo and the others present. They all had old grudges with Jiang Xiu. They definitely wouldn't give up such a good opportunity to attack Jiang Xiu. Unfortunately, these memories were fragmented memories. They stopped here. Jiang Xiu thought for a moment. Then, he took out a seed from his clothes. It was the seed he plucked from the enchanted moon lotus. He threw it down. The seed landed on the mountain and suddenly disappeared. He stood at the side and waited. According to the previous pattern, this seed would definitely return. He just didn't know if it would become a dry and moldy seed, or, it's here. Soon, there was movement below. He saw a rippling whirlpool. Then, he saw a hazy light shining through. A blooming enchanted moon lotus flew up. It's open? Jiang Xiu opened his hand and let the enchanted moon lotus land in his palm. It was blooming vigorously and full of vitality. How can this be? Jiang Xiu was very surprised. However, Supreme Vermilion Bird and her disciple were too far away. They didn't understand what was going on. He didn't use the enchanted moon lotus? Jiang Xiu couldn't understand this result. He checked the enchanted moon lotus. It was the same as the one before. He sank into deep thought. What would happen if that person jumped down? Originally, Jiang Xiu wanted to jump down and try. But at the next moment, he was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. The enchanted moon lotus in his hand withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. The flower emitting a hazy light rapidly lost its vitality. In the end, it turned into a black withered leaf. In the end, it was carbonized and was blown away by the wind. It was really dangerous. If Jiang Xiu had jumped down, the result was very likely to be a corpse. Then who went down at that time? Jiang Xiu suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He started to have a nosebleed. However, his eyes were wide open. He saw that he was surrounded by several immortal kings. At that time, his subordinates, Ji Daozong, Tang Tian, Li Zhuoyang, and his friends Shui Wuyao, Yan Longyue, Corpse God Taoist, Hua Luiying, and the others were watching from the side. They didn't have the slightest intention to help. Although Jiang Xiu was strong, he was in an undefeatable position at most when facing the siege of 5 or 6 immortal kings. Cheng Lingran looked at this scene with tears in her eyes. Jiang Xiu was screaming and shouting, but his friends were all indifferent. Their clothes fluttered, and they were full of grief and reluctance. Jiang Xiu was even more devastated and shouted. Cheng Lingran jumped down. Those who were besieging Jiang Xiu heard it. Jiang Shituo was smiling proudly, and some of his subordinates were also present. Jiang Xiu rushed to the edge of the cliff and saw Cheng Lingran disappear into the smoke and clouds. In the next moment, the scene flashed in his mind. Cheng Lingran came back alive from below. Jiang Xiu was wild with joy, and the surrounding immortal kings all showed a thoughtful expression. Only Cheng Lingran was very nervous. She was roaring at Jiang Xiu. Looking at her lips, it seemed like she was roaring, kill me quickly. Big brother Jiang, kill me. Jiang Xiu held the sword and questioned her why she wanted to kill him. The memory was broken again. Jiang Xiu understood why he attacked her. So it was like this. However, it also confirmed that Cheng Lingran was definitely a goddess. Since she was a goddess, she would know what the tomb of Celestial Emperor was and what would happen next. Next, she would rapidly lose her life and die. Perhaps only by cutting off her life would she be able to survive. Chapter 635. If Cheng Lingran didn't ask Jiang Xiu to kill him, even Jiang Xiu wouldn't be able to understand it. Only the goddess could understand such profound logic. The Cheng Lingran in front of him should have been descended by the goddess. In Jiang Xiu's original impression, he didn't have a bad impression of the goddess. Although she had taken over Xieting and caused the world to descend on earth, Her original intention was to avenge the slaughter of her people. She was so persistent that she would rather be burned to death than let the world descend. Zhang Xiu was even moved by her. But now, it seemed that things were not as simple as they seemed. Once again, a violent pain assaulted him. A portion of Zhang Xiu's memories flashed through his mind. He saw himself quickly understanding her intentions and ruthlessly thrusting his sword into her body. An intense light burst out from the wound, and under her heavy injuries, her life was rapidly draining away. "Brother Zhang, kill me." Zhang Xiu's eyes turned cold. Zhang Luoxia's appearance at that time was very different from now, but his expression and eyes were exactly the same. They were filled with indifference, even a little bit like linen. Rip. The long sword was pulled out. Blood gushed out. Cheng Lingran fell into a pool of blood. "Brother Zhang, throw me down when I die." From the way she addressed him, she should be someone who looked exactly like Cheng Lingran. The real Cheng Lingran wouldn't call him Brother Zhang, she would call him Minor Repairs. He was more or less sure that only the goddess liked to call him Brother Zhang. She fell into the pool of blood. She was motionless, as if she was dead. She is really dead. Zhang Xiu didn't care about their gazes. He remembered that she told him to throw her down again before she died. He immediately picked her up and went to the edge of the cliff. The wind was whistling outside. The strange whirlpool of the tomb of the Celestial Emperor could be vaguely seen among the drifting clouds. Zhang Xiu took a look at the woman in his arms and threw her down. Her body fell down with a flapping sound. "What do you mean by throwing him down?" Some people were discussing this matter. "I don't know." What happened next stunned everyone, including Zhang Xiu. They saw her, who was already dead, fly up from the ground. Her face was sacred and her eyes were shining. She landed on the cliff and stood there, alive. "Brother Zhang." Whoosh. Even though everyone present was an immortal king, they were all dumbfounded and in an uproar. The memory fragment was broken again. Zhang Xiu woke up from his memories. His nose was still full of blood, but his body's symptoms were lighter than before. The life force of the ancient great god's blood essence had taken on a large portion of the backlash from Tianji. She survived. He couldn't believe it. She was already dead, but the tomb of Sky Emperor brought her back to life. Could this be the secret of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, the opportunity to become a martial emperor? If the dead could come back to life, this life force was too strong. Theoretically speaking, if one could use this power for their own use, they would have an immortal body. Of course, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this level of power was at the martial emperor realm. Zhang Xiu's eyes became fanatical. He came to the edge of the cliff again and stared at the tomb of Sky Emperor. His mind was filled with thoughts. Now that he could think of this, of course, Zhang Xiu could also think of it, including the many immortal kings present. His head started to hurt once again. Zhang Xiu stood at the edge of the cliff and prepared to go down, but he was hesitant. After all, this matter was very risky. Behind him, Ji Daozong said, "Sect Master, don't worry. We will do our best to protect you." Behind Ji Daozong, Li Zhuoyang, Tang Tian, and the others also showed expressions of facing death. Besides these three subordinates, there were a few old friends present. Shui Wuyao, Yen Longyue, Hua Luiying, Corpse God Taoist, and others. These were all people he could trust. Tai Hua Sect's Zhang Shituo opened his mouth and said, "Descend the 9 mysteries to cleanse the heavens, 1,000 years of work. You, Zhang Shituo, will do what you say. Since everyone has a share in the answer, then everyone will have a share." Ji Daozong said, "My sect master's words are the law of gold." "All right, then I'll have to trouble you all." Zhang Xiu glanced at Shui Wuyao. The latter nodded heavily at Zhang Xiu. He even suspected whether this man liked him. However, out of all the people present, he trusted the most. In a moment, he entrusted the task of cutting off Zhang Xiu's life force to her. "Don't worry," Shui Wuyao said, "I won't let you down." Zhang Shituo and the others spoke solemnly, but Zhang Xiu still had some reservations. He was truly arrogant, but he couldn't win against people who were truly despicable. However, he was born with a tendency to take risks, so he still resolutely jumped down. The result was, of course, that he quickly flew up from below. He felt his life force rapidly slipping away. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was extremely nervous. He shouted at Shui Wuyao, "Kill me, quick!" Everyone at the side was very concerned. Jiang Shituo didn't have any intention of stopping him. He stretched out his neck. "All right, watch my sword." The sword flashed and Jiang Xiu fell into a pool of blood. This sword was clean and precise. Shui Wuyao's temperament was neutral and gentle, but his attacks were extremely strong. He could even do it. He only left a bit of blood on Jiang Xiu's chest, where his heart was, without leaving any external injuries. He was very satisfied with his own sword. "Throw him down." When he said this, Shui Wuyao was a little nervous. Perhaps when Jiang Xiu came up again, he would be an immortal emperor. What kind of existence would that be? He would be able to command the immortal martial realm and move unhindered in the universe. However, no one paid attention to Shui Wuyao's words. His heart thumped. "Did you hear that? Throw your sect master down." Everyone present seemed to have become deaf and mute. What do you mean?" Shui Wuyao felt that something was wrong. These people were definitely not deaf or mute. He noticed that Ji Daozong, Tang Tian, Li Zhuoyang and the others were rebellious. He also noticed the coldness of Yan Longyue, Hua Luiying, and the corpse god Daoist. "If you don't throw him, I will." Just as Shui Wuyao was about to throw Jiang Xiu's corpse down the tomb of Heavenly Emperor, he was stopped by Ji Daozong. "What are you doing?" "Of course, I'm throwing Jiang Luoxia down." The person beside him said in a strange tone, "You killed our sect master, and now you want to destroy the corpse." Shui Wuyao's expression changed. "Do you want to rebel?" Yan Longyue interrupted and said, "Shui Wuyao, you publicly killed the Sky Motion sect's sect leader. As your subordinates, how could they allow you to desecrate their sect leader's corpse? If it were me, I would also swear to death that I would not comply." "You..." Shui Wuyao could no longer remain calm. Even the corpse god Daoist and the flower shadow sect's eyes were abnormally cold. "All of you, get out of my way. Otherwise, don't blame my sword for being merciless." Jiang Shituo sneered, "Shui Wuyao, can you deal with so many immortal kings with just one sword? Let me give you a word of advice. Don't throw your life away for nothing." The crowd dispersed, trapping the mist within. You. Shui Wuyao's eyes flashed with rage. A group of despicable people who go back on their words. "Even if I die, I will give Jiang Gu an explanation." Boom. Jiang Xiu's mind turned into a white light. His memories shattered. Jiang Xiu woke up from his memories. His entire body trembled. He finally understood. He roared in anger. Endless sullenness. Endless anger. A group of treacherous, despicable people. "I will definitely get my revenge. I definitely will." His eyes were red and his face was covered in blood. His memories were intermittent. He saw Shui Wuyao being surrounded by so many immortal kings. He was covered in wounds and struggling bitterly. However, it was difficult for two fists to fight against four. He was like a beast in a cage. He struggled helplessly, exhausting his last bit of magic power. In the end, he collapsed and went crazy. Looking at Jiang Xiu's corpse, he collapsed and went crazy. "Jiang Gu!" He fell to the ground and reached out to Jiang Xiu with difficulty. Gradually, everything became blurry. Shui Wuyao. Jiang Xiu understood Shui Wuyao's feelings. He understood his collapse. He was the one who killed Jiang Xiu. In the end, he was helpless and could only watch as Jiang Xiu died. If it was anyone else, they would have collapsed. If he was not crazy, he would have pulled out his sword and cut his own throat. At this moment, Jiang Xiuwei felt heartache for this brother of his. He heard from the head procuress that Shui Wuyao was still mad. When he was dragged to the heavenly Emperor Mountain, he would rather die than come up. He had left behind a painful experience here. Chapter 636. Then what was the result? This group of despicable people changed their minds and made Shui Wuyao the murderer of his brother, completely driving him crazy. What happened to them after that? Unfortunately, Zhang Xiu was already dead at that time. Even if he recovered his memory, he didn't know what happened next. Judging from the result, the goddess should be dead. If she didn't die, she shouldn't be able to go back, so she wouldn't have come to Earth later. And among the remaining people, no one became an immortal emperor. Not Ji Daozong, not Zhang Shituo, not Yan Longyue. What was the purpose of the goddess descending on people like Chang Lingran? She was the one who revealed the secret of the Tomb of Universe. In other words, the tragedy that happened to Zhang Xiu was caused by her. If it wasn't for her demonstration, Zhang Xiu wouldn't have jumped, and he wouldn't have died. At that time, when Cheng Lingran was forced to jump off the cliff, it seemed that she had no choice. She didn't want Zhang Xiu to fall into the mire. But in the end, it was more like she told everyone present the secret of the Tomb of Sky Emperor. Everything was a conspiracy, a trap. She didn't tell Zhang Xiu that he killed her. She didn't use the Tomb of Sky Emperor to come back to life in front of everyone. Who would know that there was such a secret in the Tomb of Sky Emperor? Zhang Xiu knew that this conspiracy was directed at him, because in the end, he was the one who died. If this was the purpose of the goddess, then she had achieved it. But a more inexplicable question appeared in Zhang Xiu's mind. Why did Chang Lingsu use the great art of destiny and use the heaven's design to hide this? What did she want to hide? Zhang Xiu stood at the edge of the cliff, standing at the place where he once suffered misfortune. He looked at the Tomb of Sky Emperor under the cliff, and at the huge strange whirlpool. No. He forgot one thing. When he jumped off the Tomb of Sky Emperor, he didn't have any memory of what was under the Tomb of Sky Emperor. Why was there such a strange phenomenon, and why did he fall into someone's trap? Zhang Xiu tried hard to recall, but for a long time, he couldn't remember anything. His head was in unbearable pain. The concealing power of the heavenly secrets here was extraordinarily strong. Could it be that Chang Lingsu wanted to hide the secret of the Tomb of Heavenly Emperor? There was no answer to this question at the moment. Zhang Xiu looked at the Tomb of Heavenly Emperor and pondered. If he wanted to know the secret, he could just jump down one more time. However, if he jumped down, he might lose his life. He still wanted to keep his life, so that those despicable people would pay him back with interest. Master, why did he leave? Zhang Xiu returned to the airboat and steered it back to where he came from. Strange. Supreme Sparrow was confused. What he didn't know was that Zhang Xiu had found what he wanted to know. Where is he going? Back to the sect? He had been out for a while now and had visited all the places he should visit. It was time for him to go back. Master, is he Zhang Luoxia? After following him for a long time, it was quite difficult. However, Supreme Sparrow did not seem to find any concrete evidence that he was Zhang Luoxia. Supreme Sparrow said, "Yes, he is Zhang Luoxia. Although there is no concrete evidence, I am sure that it is him. Going to the brothel and coming here, only Zhang Luoxia would do this if he wanted to pursue the past." The disciple said, "But Master, these are still guesses, there is no way to prove it." Yes, he had spent so much effort to follow them all the way because he wanted to find solid evidence. Perhaps, his next step would be to find that crazy Shui Wuyao. Follow him. If he was Zhang Luoxia and did not find what he wanted at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, he would not give up on someone who knew about it. At the same time, he was also his former good friend. Not to mention, he had gone crazy. As an old friend, most likely he would not be able to hold himself back and go to see him when he went crazy. However, Zhang Xiu did not go. Zhang Xiu knew clearly why Shui Wuyao had gone crazy. However, Zhang Xiu could not go to see him. He was Zhang Xiu and he did not know Shui Wuyao. Going to the brothel could be a coincidence. However, If he went to see his old friend, wouldn't he be telling everyone that he was Zhang Luoxia? Zhang Xiu returned to the sect. When he saw Zhang Xiu enter the Green State, Supreme Sparrow knew that Zhang Xiu was returning to the sect. He did not follow him and returned to the sect before Zhang Xiu using the flying boat. After Zhang Xiu had returned, his home had become empty again. Zhao Rong was no longer there. His face still remained indifferent. Since a long time ago, he had gotten used to this kind of loneliness. Elite warriors had to endure loneliness. However, he would not feel bored. After returning to his home and settling down, he began to cultivate. He did not have the time to develop the blood essence in his body because he was in a hurry. Moreover, he had to recuperate from the serious injuries caused by resisting the heavenly secrets many times. First, he took some medicinal pills to recover his body. In his spirit essence, his life-bound divine tool was still shattered. However, these stones had mutated and were emitting a strange power. As long as he willed it, he could reform his life-bound divine tool. He had refined the snake blood into his life-bound divine tool and made it a part of his life-bound divine tool. From then on, he had overcome the weakness of being restrained by the snake blood. The worst thing was that he was already a great heavenly deity. However, because of the shattering of his life-bound divine tool and the restoration of his life-bound divine tool, although the third divine Tao pattern had already taken shape, his innate talent had not been revealed. It was as if it was isolated by some kind of strange power or some kind of membrane. Zhang Xiu had never encountered such a situation before. He could not find any reason for it. However, after absorbing the blood essence, the power in the blood essence seemed to have triggered the awakening of the third Protoss innate talent in his bloodline. This discovery made Zhang Xiu extremely happy. Judging from his observation, this process would not take too long. He only needed to absorb a little bit of the blood essence to trigger a qualitative change. It would awaken the third innate talent that had already been awakened but was now dormant. He estimated that it would take about half a month. Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, the elders invite you in. This afternoon, the elders who had gone to the new sect had returned. They should have gone to Supreme Sparrow's place first. Then, they sent someone to find Zhang Xiu. The elders had sent an order. As a disciple, he naturally had no reason to not go. Disciple Zhang Xiu greets the two elders. Supreme Sparrow was not present. Only the Enforcement Elder and Q-Sword Elder were present. Zhang Xiu, I heard that you went on a long journey. Zhang Xiu nodded and said, yes. Q-Sword Elder said, did you go to Tsong State? Zhang Xiu also guessed that Supreme Sparrow would send a message. There was no need to hide it. Yes, I went to Tsong State and Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I was just curious about what they said. I only went for a stroll and did not find anything. Humph humph. Q-Sword Elder said, did you go to the sect master's ancestral hall? He did not dare to take the blame. Only the sect master and special disciples of the sect could enter there. Ordinary disciples were forbidden. If they entered rashly, they would be charged with blasphemy. I did not. That is a forbidden area. The disciplinary elder said, we specially checked the blood left behind by the previous sovereign, Zhang Luo. The Supreme Sparrow tested it with some medicine and there were some residual images on it. It seemed that someone had tampered with it. If I'm not mistaken, the blood inside should have been changed. Is that so? Q-Sword Elder said, you still won't admit it. Zhang Xiu said, admit what? Humph. The two grabbed Zhang Xiu and questioned him. However, Zhang Xiu clenched his teeth and refused to admit it. When he came out, it was already afternoon. He walked back along the chain. Currently, his cultivation was crippled. He could only walk on the giant chain between the peaks. Junior Brother Zhang. Suddenly, a pleasant voice called out. Zhang Xiu looked up and saw several flying boats flying over. Qin Qing was greeting him. Senior Sister Qin. Junior Brother, where are you going? Returning to the peak. Qin Qing said, Green Spirit Mountain has opened the Green Spirit list. We are going there. Are you interested in going with us? Looking at each and every one of them full of hope and burning eyes, Jiang Xiu saw himself in the past. He shook his head. His youth had already passed. Senior Sister Qin, why did you ask a trash to go with you? If you go there, wouldn't you lose face for our Tianqing school? Jiang Xiu's eyes coldly swept over. Jiang Xiu had some impression of this person. He seemed to be a disciple of the Ji Dao sect. Only someone of his lineage could speak so bluntly. Okay, I'm bored in the sect. Then I'll go with Senior Sister. Qin Qing was stunned. Didn't he just say that he didn't want to go? Then come up. Chapter 637. After Jiang Xiu boarded the airship, he glanced at that person indifferently. Sure enough, he was a disciple of the Ji Dao sect. When had he ever provoked him? He actually called him trash. Qin Qing saw that he was empty-handed. Although sect disciples were forbidden from bringing followers when they went out on missions, empty-handed was too little. You're going just like that? Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. Junior brother is really free and easy. That disciple snorted coldly, seemingly disdainful of Jiang Xiu. As a disciple of the sect master, of course he was superior to others. Sometimes, some peak masters and even elders would be polite to them and look at them in a different light. Qin Qing said, Senior brother Yao, Jiang Xiu's talent could be considered outstanding before. Although he's injured now and in a difficult situation, he deserves our respect. Qin Qing had a good impression of Jiang Xiu. He had helped her out of a predicament before, so of course she didn't want Jiang Xiu to be humiliated, so she spoke up for him. Humph. The disciple sneered at Jiang Xiu but didn't say anything else. His meaning was obvious. I'm giving face to Qin Qing. In my eyes, you're not even an onion. Ignore him. After he left, Qin Qing looked at Jiang Xiu with a smile and said, Junior brother Jiang, you're an anomaly in the sect. I haven't seen you for many years, but today I caught you alive. Jiang Xiu smiled. Why does it sound like I'm scolding someone? Qin Qing's smile deepened. You're the one who made the connection. During the New Year, Qin Qing came to Jiang Xiu's place to pay New Year's greetings and chat. This sect disciple was a typical Tianqing school disciple with a firm Dao heart. Jiang Xiu said, Senior Sister Qin, you're going to Qingling Mountain this time. It seems you're well prepared. Are you planning to make a name for yourself in the immortal martial arts world? Qin Qing sighed. It's difficult. I know my own situation. My strength is limited, and my talent can't be compared to those geniuses. I can only join in the fun and show my face. She looked at Jiang Xiu and said, You, on the other hand, it's a pity. If you weren't injured, you would definitely amaze the world. Is there really no other way? She truly felt sorry for Jiang Xiu. The successor battle was still vivid in her mind, and Jiang Xiu could even survive a soul attack. She did not expect that he would be destroyed in the hands of the Samsara Palace. Jiang Xiu smiled and looked into the distance. By the way, I left the sect a while ago. How's the matter of moving the sect? He decided to follow them to Green Spirit Mountain and didn't want to see those elders again. If he stayed in the sect, they might find some evidence to point at him. About that, Qin Qing said, I'm not sure about the specifics. It's all up to the higher-ups. But since the sect leader has made the decision, it should be soon. Even if we're going to move, we'll have to wait until the other side is finished before we move over. Several days later, they arrived at Green Spirit Mountain. This mountain range was incomparably noisy. In the past, there weren't many people who came here, but there were often people who came because of its reputation. However, the real bustle was when the Green Spirit Leaderboard was released. The older generation generally did not come. Occasionally, there would be a few elders who would lead the group, but they were usually from the younger generation, rising stars. There were also many street stalls here. They didn't do business, but rather traded goods. Tianqing School was a large sect, and the disciples under it could be considered the second generation of the immortal martial continent. They were very wealthy and did not need to rack their brains for resources. However, some small sects and loose cultivators would often go to great lengths for a single material. Zhang Xiu had also experienced this in the past. At that time, he was in the outer sect and had endured it. Of course, the things they were exchanging now could no longer enter Zhang Xiu's eyes. 300-year-old spirit mushrooms. I have a deal. Earth spirit turtle. I have a third-grade pill. All kinds of voices were incessant. Zhang Xiu seemed to see the scene when his master had brought him and his fellow disciples here. At that time, Zhang Xiu was secretly annoyed. If he had known about this place earlier, he wouldn't have had to work so hard for a few months in Green Province for the rootless grass. Junior brother Zhang, your body isn't good right now. Follow the group. The situation here is a bit chaotic. Qin Qing reminded him. Zhang Xiu naturally knew that this was a place of turmoil. Dragons and snakes mixed together, and people were often killed. Sometimes, the reason might be because someone's arrogant gaze made others unhappy. Especially this master Zhang Xiu. His gaze was innately arrogant, and he was used to looking down on the world. Humph. Yao Zireo said, "It's really troublesome for a trash to follow us out. It's better to bring a servant girl. A servant girl knows how to serve people." Zhang Xiu coldly laughed. "Let's stay here first. The taverns here required money, and it wasn't free." No matter what, Zhang Xiu was still a true disciple. With Qin Qing's help, he was given a single room, but his seat was a bit off. Just as Zhang Xiu planned to return to his room, a group of people passed by. Zhang Xiu sharply caught sight of a familiar face. Turning his head to look, it was a beautiful face. Suing. At that time, Zhang Xiu was forced to use the fire evasion heavenly technique, but he couldn't control himself and crashed into the mountain. At that time, he encountered two equally matched beauties who were both heavily injured. Zhang Xiu even took liberties with them. It's her. She also came to fight for the Azure Spirit List. The Azure Spirit List was the best opportunity for young people to become famous. As long as one had a certain amount of strength, they would come here to show their face. If they could amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and become famous on the Azure Spirit List, then their sect would be in the limelight, and it would be easier for them to accept talented disciples. Suing didn't see Zhang Xiu, and Zhang Xiu didn't greet her either. He just passed by like that. Returning to his room, he sat cross-legged and cultivated. The absorption of essence blood was very slow, and it could only be accelerated when he cultivated. After a few days, the blood in his body faintly showed signs of breaking through the barrier, but it still lacked some strength. If he encountered this kind of cultivation situation, he would be able to successfully break through in one fell swoop by concocting the corresponding elixir, but Zhang Xiu didn't know what kind of elixir he needed to break through. But the essence blood suddenly lit up with 4 colors of blood. Zhang Xiu's entire body turned red, and the triggering factors in his blood immediately exploded like a nuclear weapon. His whole body shook. The blood violently rushed to his brain, and it was as if a hole had been opened in his brain. At this moment, his heart suddenly beat. He used to hope that such a situation would happen, but now he was scared half to death. The impact to the brain was very likely related to the soul. If he could awaken a talent related to the soul, then it would be really... But unfortunately, Zhang Xiu's soul was gone. The consequences of this were hard to predict. He couldn't rule out the possibility of dying on the spot. In the end, the awakened power of the Protoss didn't target the soul as Zhang Xiu had thought. Instead, it transformed his entire body, and everything was overturned and rebuilt. His body became incomparably complex. Zhang Xiu couldn't describe his body. He checked his divine vein pattern, and something that he didn't have before awakened. It was the effect of the third divine vein. This is mind-splitting technique? In the past, Zhang Xiu could multitask, but it was still limited to one body, and one body couldn't carry 2 different sets of spells. However, his body had become incomparably complex, and it had this ability. Was this the effect of the third divine vein? appear. As he chanted, the divine vein pattern that extended from his arm to his chest lit up. Then, his body became pitch black, and any spell could be used inside. In the past, it was a single-core spell, but now it could be considered a multi-core spell. It's really like this. Zhang Xiu was extremely shocked. This was really too heaven-defying. In other words, Zhang Xiu could use multiple spells at the same time. What kind of freak was this? One had to know that even celestial kings could only use one spell, and the only thing they could do was to infinitely increase the speed of their spellcasting. However, Zhang Xiu could use them at the same time. If this was the case, a siege would be ineffective against Zhang Xiu. He could deal with many people's attacks at the same time. The premise was that his magic power was enough to support it. He had read in a book that many Protoss would have 3 forms. The second form was the form of armor. This so-called armor was the armor of the hidden armor, and it referred to an extremely small amount of power. This description was similar to the power attribute of celestial kings. If Zhang Xiu entered the second form, then not only would he be able to control his body at will, but he would also definitely reach the level of a divine king. With this thought, Zhang Xiu was shocked. Just the evolution of his body could reach the level of a divine king. His bloodline was really too heaven-defying. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.